The story begins with Loa Foyle, a 19-year-old boy at level 10. Blood and bruises cover him as he grips his sword. Whatever he fought lies defeated, and that's a real feat. He's thrilled about it. In the Foyle village, a guild comes into view. The same boy barges into the guild and shouts to everyone there that he's finally defeated 2 slimes. A hush falls over the guild for a heartbeat. Then everyone bursts into cruel laughter, jeering that he got bruises just from beating slimes and wouldn't even deserve an F for it. The boy warns that those slimes can bite when they get serious, but the crowd just keeps mocking him. Just like when everyone used to make fun of Naruto. Unaware of the true challenge, they shrugged. Slimes were easy to beat after all. Unfazed by their mockery, Loa walked up to the guild employee and announced he had won 2 magic gems. Sure, they were worth 1 million mers. But the employee snaps him back to reality, bluntly telling him he only gets 3 mers. Loa pleads with him for more mers. 3 just isn't enough for a proper meal. The employee refuses, shrugging. That's just how business works. Disappointed, Loa sighs and settles for grass and bugs for dinner. The employee asks, voice tight with worry, where he stands right now. He admits he used to be level 25, but now he's down to level 10. He storms up to Loa, demanding why his levels were eaten, and Loa just says quietly that he had to. There was no other way to beat the slime. His sword snapped, forcing him to sacrifice his levels to forge a new one. We learn Loa has a rare skill. He can create items by sacrificing his own levels, yet strangely it hardly helps him. The other person nods, but gives only a half-hearted compliment, and it makes Loa bristle. He has to spend his levels to craft items, so he can't save them up. That keeps him from ever becoming a merchant. Even worse, every item he crafts saps his strength, leaving him too weak to join parties. Loa is crushed by depression. He can't earn money or get the experience he needs. Every day he battles weak monsters to level up but never grows strong enough. And when he cries out, you can tell he's a good guy. The wind picks up and it feels like everyone already knows why. A boy named Carter shows up with a grin and immediately starts taunting Loa. His presence grates on everyone there, and they shout at him. They'd already warned him not to use magic in the guild. He ignores their warning, acting like a spoiled boy who flaunts his parents' wealth. Carter won't let anyone boss him and brags that his father runs the only item shop in the village, an attitude that irritates everyone around him. He sneers at Loa, taunting that Loa can't use magic like he can. He had to burn through his levels just to create a single. He laughs, holding the sword, bragging that he owns many blades just like the one Loa created. This spoiled brat. Carter's mockery doesn't rile Loa. He stays calm and says he doesn't necessarily hate his skill. He says he always loved every little thing he bought with his own money when he was a kid. He believes it's meaningful to gain something by sacrificing what he holds dear. His unnerving calm makes Carter see red. Loa is about to walk away when the clerk calls after him, reminding him about his 3 mers. He almost lets the reward slip from his mind. With those mers, he can at least buy some salt, and he slips away, leaving an irritated Carter behind whose dislike for Loa only grows. Walking through the tunnel, Loa tells himself that no matter what anyone says, he will continue to use. He has no choice but to use this power. He draws his sword and starts cutting down the slimes that swarm the tunnel. Levels alone won't make you stronger. Skills are essential, and when you level up, you earn skill points you can spend to learn skills and magic. But because Loa's item creation skill makes his level keep bouncing around, he can't stabilize long enough to gain any skill points. No matter how many levels he climbs, he still can't learn a single spell or skill. That's why he trains hard with his sword to grow stronger, and Loa cuts down every monster. And finally he levels up to 49. At this level, he might be able to take down the monster on the lower floor. But one wrong move and he'd be dead. Defeating the monster could end his days of scraping by on almost nothing, and he moves forward, turning it over in his mind. He comes across a barrier, and beyond it the dungeon boss waits. Once you step into the barrier, there's no way out until you kill the monster. Loa might not win, but he gladly accepts the challenge, hoping that killing the monster will finally end his miserable life. And he steps into the barrier. The moment he steps into the dungeon what if the boss suddenly appears behind him and attacks? The dungeon boss is a skeleton swordsman, looking like Brooke's brother, best for players around level 50. It's almost Loa's level. Loa strikes back with his sword, but the dungeon boss twists aside and dodges his attack. Loa's heart sinks as he realizes the boss is stronger than the mobs he's faced. But he refuses to give up. He's already endured so many hardships. Rushes at the dungeon boss with bright-eyed enthusiasm. At last he strikes true with his sword and brings him down. The dungeon boss falls. Loa can hardly believe he won. He's bursting with joy. He finally beat a monster. A sudden ping lights up. His level just rose, and he's gained a brand new skill. They called it magic creation. The next day he shows up at the guild, and carefully places the bag oddly full of the bag. He set a pile of gems down in front of the clerk for the exchange. Everyone's stunned to see him show up with so many gems. And Loa is also so happy. Tonight he finally gets to eat a proper meal. After a while, Loa sits in the cabin. Half a Terria of Foil Village were joyfully enjoying a proper meal. The meal doesn't try to show off. Only bread, soup, and jerky. But the poor boy, having waited many long days, savors every bite with tears in his eyes. He makes the people around him feel how pathetic he is. While eating, he thinks about after defeating the monster yesterday, he walked away with a brand new skill. I tried it in the dungeon. It's a top quality skill, and he's really good. He quietly nibbles his food as the spoiled Carter appears again. Someone starts to get on his nerves by taking his jerky without permission. It lets out a small shout at him, but then remembers that he should just ignore him. Carter probably thinks he can kick Loa out whenever he feels like it. Carter leans in, asking about the guild whispers of Loa's many gems, and Loa nods, saying he earned those magic gems by defeating the monsters. But suddenly Carter grabs his hand and cries out to everyone that he got those gems from the shop. Then he accuses Love. Carter's father listened to this. With one eye hidden by a patch, he levels his sword at Loa and snarls that thieves deserve death. He freezes, stunned by the sudden shift in the air, and asks, "What's going on?" The man snaps, "Don't play dumb. Some magical gems disappeared from the shop." He accuses Loa of this robbery. Loa scrambles to explain himself, but Carter shuts him down, saying there's no way Loa could have gotten all those magical gems on his own. Keeps him from firing off false accusations. Suddenly, Carter fires a wind bullet that sends all the food crashing to the ground, then glares at Loa and snaps, "Don't play dumb, or you'll be next." He grabs Loa by dash. A rough hand grabs his collar and demands his surrender, but Loa insists he didn't do anything. Carter admits he knows Loa didn't do anything, yet a grand prize waits for whoever captures the culprit. Carter's party is short on money right now, so he's desperate for the cash. No matter how much Loa pleads, he has no evidence to prove himself innocent. Carter tells him he's the one who stole the gems, then pushes Loa toward his father so he'll be taken to the guards. Suddenly, Loa pulls his hand back from Carter and, smiling, asks if the person who catches the culprit will win a grand prize. And then, in a heartbeat, magic surrounds Loa. He tells them he didn't steal the gems. He earned them. Carter can't believe that Loa is using magic now, and even that D-rank flame spear. Gasps ripple through the crowd as everyone sees Loa using magic. After defeating the dungeon boss, he lingered in the dungeon a little longer to practice his new skill, magic creation. Earlier in the dungeon, when he opened his status window, a rush of new entries about magic creation suddenly popped up. There were numerous spell-like traces shimmering in the air. Spells like Magic Fireball and Water Cannon each cost 50 levels and chew up 250 MP. A spark of realization hit Loa. This new skill was basically the same as his old item creation ability. Both demanded the same costly currency, levels, so he could profit by trading levels between them. Loa had to learn to use magic too. Until now, Loa could only get an item. Reclaiming levels had been super tough, but now he could easily defeat monsters with magic, making it much easier to get his levels back. He felt excited but such. He forced himself to calm down and sat, knowing the first thing he had to do was choose what kind of magic to use. He tried several magic styles, but in the end his heart settled on fire magic. But it drained 250 MP. With only about 260 MP to his name, Loa could pull it off just once. Luckily, there are plenty of other spells that cost far less MP. He picked a spell called Fire Spear as his first magic. It cost him 40 MP. He also drew on every other magic level he had, since the spells he used daily only cost about 1 level each. After collecting every low-level, low-cost spell, he finally decided to use magic against the small monsters. Suddenly, a tiny level 32 monster popped up, and it looked just like an adorable cat. Don't be fooled. Sometimes appearances can be deceiving. It suddenly morphed into a gigantic wolf and lunged at Loa. It startled him. He wasn't mentally prepared. He swallowed hard and, with trembling hands, thrust the fire spear forward. Took the monster down in one shot. Loa felt a rush of joy and excitement. He'd taken down a level 32 monster with a single strike. He learned that if a powerful spell landed, it could defeat an enemy. Even with a huge level gap from me, he got a notification that he'd earned experience from defeating the monster, and that his level, it jumped from 1 to 11. A thrill shot through him as he finally felt himself growing stronger. He braced himself and vowed to use his magical creation to excel at magic. Back in the cafeteria, Carter's mood finally broke. He apologized to Loa and asked him to stop using magic. He pleaded for forgiveness for falsely accusing him. Seeing him apologize, Loa let his magic fall silent, explaining he didn't want to make a scene. He just wanted to share what Carter had whispered to him earlier. Carter, too, acknowledged it and began to speak. Suddenly, he pinned all the blame for the theft of the magic gems on the guild counterperson who'd been there watching the whole thing, and the counterperson snapped back. Things exploded into a verbal fight that left Loa dumbfounded by Carter's actions, and Carter's cheerful, "You okay?" only made him angrier. He was furious that Carter had just blamed someone else for the theft and lied. The guild employee stands up to defend himself. Stay tuned. He didn't steal anything. Carter and St. John did, pinning the blame on him. Convinced he can punish the employee, he lashes out with a gust of wind at the innocent man. That move finally makes Loa snap. He snuffs out Carter's magic with his own. Loa had wanted Carter to let him handle it, but Carter gives him no choice, so he takes matters into his own hands. It sees the attention of everyone present and demonstrates his everyday magic. He records moments of life and plays them back. When the magic unfolds before their eyes, everyone finally understands the earlier conversation the two of them had. The truth laid bare, and everyone knew Carter was the real culprit. A figure sneaks up behind him, snatches him, and strikes him. They appreciate Loa for his efforts, and the roar of their cheers makes him realize that they also hold disdain for Carter. Loa beams with joy, thrilled that he won't be looked down upon anymore. Everyone, even the guild employees, swarmed around him, showering him with praise for his work. The next day, Loa walks into the guild and is stunned to see everyone acting like different people. Their behavior has flipped completely. Some reach out, begging him to join their party, while others clench their fists, ready to fight him. Loa turns down their offers, saying he'd rather not team up with anyone. He's convinced joining the party would pay off big time. That means the EXP would be split among the members, holding back his skill development. They hunger to earn experience on their own and blast up levels in no time. He steps up to the counter where a staff member stands there, clearly waiting for him. The staff member asks Loa for his guild car and congratulate him. He's just been promoted from F rank to E rank. He couldn't make sense of his promotion. Loa realizes an adventurer's rank comes from how much you give the guild and how strong you really are. And because of what he did in the cafeteria yesterday, he's just earned a promotion. The staff member extends a low hand, his brand new guild card, which has been from iron to bronze. Loa accepts it and excitedly rubs it against his face, still in disbelief that he's been promoted, thinking he might be the only one who spent so much time just to get an E rank, while the staff member smiles. Now he won't have to see Loa, bruises all over her from fighting slimes. He grinned like an idiot, proudly holding his E rank card. Now an E rank adventurer, he decides to go hunt some monsters. Lost in thought, voices behind him snap him back. He turns and sees an adventurer party locked in a fierce fight with goblins. The party members are urging one of their own, Sonia, to join the party. Step up and be the tank. A tank's job is simple and brutal. Block the enemy's attacks. Sonia, covered in dirt, They listen to criticisms more than instructions. Loa watches with a frown at their shaky teamwork and sees Sonia, trying to shield her teammate from a goblin, as frail and ill-suited for the front. Yet she guts it out, making herself the enemy's target. He can't wrap his head around why the others are losing patience with her. He sighs, shrugs it off as none of his business, and starts to walk away. Meanwhile, a goblin strikes Sonia from behind, taking her completely by surprise. Her teammates scramble to warn her about the goblin, but it's already too late. The goblin attacks Sonia. She sees no way out, despair closing her eyes. Then, as it gets close, Loa's fire spear magic suddenly erupts and sends him flying. Sonia's eyes go wide. She thinks one of the girls at the party has saved her. She thanks her, but the other girl insists she didn't do anything. Our innocent Sonia keeps thanking her, giving the girl a chance to rise, and the girl proudly accepts, asking Sonia to bow before her. Watching their interaction, Loa lets out a small sigh of relief when they don't notice him and slips away, not wanting them to be angry with him for interfering. He believes every adventurer is ready for any danger, and since they get plenty of rewards, they'd hate anyone meddling in their affairs. If Loa hadn't arrived in time, Sonia would have been torn to pieces. He glances at his status window. It shows he has exhausted a significant portion of his. The new magic didn't overwrite the old. He keeps 2 distinct skills and he can still use his item creation power to its fullest. He uses that skill to craft MP restoration medicine, and it drains about 20 levels. He had 50 levels at first, but now he only has 30 left. He decides to spend his remaining levels to make real magic. He crafts an item box that tucks up to 150 items into an alternate space. He tucks the MP restoration medicine inside and smiles. It's really handy. Because restoring MP drains his levels, MP restoration medicine will be invaluable, so he decides to keep leveling and hoard as many MP restoration medicines as he can. Over the next 3 days, he fights monsters and hoards countless MP restoring medicines. By the 4th day, he'd piled up about 100 MP restoration medicines, and his worries about his MP finally began to fade. After a while, he descends into the E-ranked dungeon to confront the boss, but he freezes when he sees a familiar face behind the barrier. Sonia stands there, shield raised, facing a massive monster named King Frog. It's level 100. Loa stands gaping at its enormous size and immediately assumes it's the dungeon boss. The monster lashes its tongue at Sonia, and she raises her shield to block it. Loa stares up at the colossal monster, bewildered that she's the only one fighting it when she's supposed to be in a party. If she tries to take on everything alone, she won't win. He steps forward to help her, then falters. She's an adventurer, he tells himself. She should be ready for this. After all, he felt the same. He wouldn't accept anyone's help, and that's how he got this far. If she's set on becoming an adventurer, she must be that way. Considering all this, he starts to walk away. His secret doubts gnawed at that belief, and at that moment, he too wanted someone to say. No one ever came to his aid, and asking for help felt pathetic. He couldn't bear anyone seeing his weakness, so he carried on. Loa fights to hold himself back, yet deep inside his true self aches to rescue Sonia. Finally, he charges the monster, throwing himself between it and Sonia. She takes a step back to look at him and asks what he's doing. He says he's only an adventurer passing through, and now he's going to take down the monster boss. Loa's only at level 40 right now, and he instant regrets acting all cool because the monster's level towers far above his. He looks back at Sonia. She doesn't look like she can fight anymore, and with Loa barging in, he has no choice but to fight. Out of nowhere, the monster boss lunges at Loa, and he barely scrambles out of the way. If that attack had hit him, he'd have died instantly. And as he's about to use his magic, the monster boss eerily brings his eye inches from his face, freezing him with fear. He needs 4 seconds to charge his flame spear magic. But with the monster attacking this fast, there's no way he'll get them. Seeing him cornered, Sonia cries out that the monster's stomach is its weak spot. Loa thanks her, but struggles to aim his magic there. He can still do it with his items, so he reaches for his MP restoration medicine, but the monster attacks at the same moment, smashing the medicine. Loa hurriedly pulls out more medicines. Sonia shouts at him to focus on the attacks, not the restoration. It murmurs to her that it's fine, and that everything is going according to plan. He somehow sneaks up to the monster and smashes the medicine right before its eyes, making it shut them, giving lowest. Meanwhile, he activates. In 4 seconds, he lunges at the monster and finally brings it down. Sonia's eyes widen at the sudden magic, so Loa quickly explains he wasn't trying to drink the restoration potions. He was just trying to reduce the floor's friction. He proudly says it's hard to look cool. Sonia, tears in her eyes, thanks him, and even points out he has shards of glass in his back. But our male lead doesn't pay much attention to. A ping flashes. Loa earned experience for defeating a monster, and his level leapt from 40 to 70. Loa's heart soars. He just gained 30 levels. He has acquired the name Loa, the Dungeon Traveler. Suddenly, Sonia collapses behind him, and Loa lunges forward, throwing out a hand to reach her. Her condition is awful. She'd been fighting long before Loa arrived, and it's taken its toll. He takes out his MP restoration medicine. He asks her if she can drink, but Sonia refuses. It's far too luxurious for her, she says. But Loa deliberately makes her a drink. After all, it won't cost him much. Sonia instantly feels better and springs to her feet to thank Loa. He saved her twice. But when Loa acts like he doesn't understand, she tells him that seeing his magic made her realize he was the one who saved her from the goblin the other day. Loa hurriedly apologized for interfering earlier, but Sonia cut him off with a warm smile, saying she was truly grateful to him. Loa introduces himself and reveals he already knows her name. He heard it from her party, and then asks about her allies. She tells him, voice raw with hurt, that they abandoned her while she was fighting. Loa can't believe it, and she goes on to say that since she's the party's tank, only she entered the barrier. When her allies realized they couldn't defeat the monster on their own, they left her behind and went out. Loa is furious that her allies abandoned her even though they knew she could die, and when he asks why she was paired with them, she replies that she has a unique skill. She's named Impenetrable. Because of that rule, she can only gain defense skills and no attack skills, so she has to fight with the party and endure even the harshest treatment. Sonia, her eyes full of tears and a shy, blushing smile on her lips, thanks Loa, saying that if it hadn't been for him, she would already be dead. Loa seethes to discover Sonia is just like him, scorned for an inconvenient skill, and worse still, treated far more cruelly than he was. Her allies, or more honestly, snakes, had been using her however they liked. When Sonia saw Loa fall silent, she called to him, and he told her to go back to the village with him, where her allies were probably sitting and eating as if nothing had happened. Now Loa can't just let this slide. He's decided to teach her allies a lesson for treating Sonia like this. In the village, Sonia's allies, a girl and a boy, lounge in the guild, drinks in hand, swapping wild tales of how they escaped the dungeon and snickering at Sonia for getting stuck with a deranged monster. They were teasing her when Sonia suddenly appeared with Loa, catching both of them off guard, and among them, someone asks how she survived. The woman cuts him off, bursting into dramatic tears and lunging towards Sonia, crying that she's so relieved Sonia is alive. She pleads with Sonia, convincing her she'd been worried and had tried to stop her from crossing the barrier. But Sonia crossed anyway. Loa, fed up with the girl's antics, decides to expose their deception, knowing adventurers care fiercely about their reputation. Without it, they won't attract strong members. He shouts that Sonia told him they abandoned her in the dungeon. If he hadn't saved her, she'd be dead. He sneers at them, saying they'd do it again and calling them awful. The man tells him to slow down, but Loa insists that's just how he talks. The man shoots back that they didn't abandon her, and even if they had, Loa has no proof. In response, Loa proudly reveals the D-rank magic stone he earned by defeating the monster. He insists he never would have gotten it without defeating the king frog, hinting that if they hadn't fled, they'd have it too, while the man tries to shift the blame onto Loa, claiming he could have created it with his item creation power. He goes on, saying Sonia was alone because she chose to be, and Loa lets the onlookers read Sonia's face and decide, whispers curling through the crowd who are all against Sonia's allies. And Loa only smirks as he tells the boy that, as a low-ranked adventurer, he doesn't need a good reputation, but they do. The other boy explodes in fury and lunges a punch at Loa, but Loa easily slips aside. He returns every blow with equal force. Having fought for many years without powers, Loa has the advantage in a fistfight. Just as a fight is about to erupt between them, the guild's counterperson storms forward, furious, and steps in to stop it. He roars at them to take their fight outside, or he'll snatch their guild cards. Sonia grabs Loa's hand and yanks him out. Loa protests, saying he hasn't taught them enough of a lesson yet. Sonia beams at him and says she feels better now, thanking him, and Loa accepts her gratitude gladly, convinced the confrontation was worth it. After a while, they both sit in the cafeteria, a lavish meal spread out before them. Sonia offers it all to him and says she'll pay for everything. Noah is practically drooling at the sight of the high-quality meal and asks her if he can indulge, and Sonia gladly replies that it's fine because he saved her. Loa digs in, and the instant he bites, a wave of deliciousness washes over him. Our poor boy has never tasted food this good before. He thinks Sonia must be new to the village, which explains why she doesn't know he only recently learned magic. Up until then, people had laughed at him, and he saved Sonia, convinced she was just like him. He admits he wanted to leave at first. He didn't think he had the right to save her. He shifts the topic, saying he'll pay for the meal with the money he received after exchanging the magic stone. And after a pause, Sonia says he still saved her, even though she is weak. He wouldn't leave her behind, and that fills her with a fierce determination to repay him even more. She tells Loa, her voice hopeful, "If it's okay with you, we can form a party together." Loa's breath catches when Sonia asks to form a party with him. He's stunned, but he's still alive. She explains in a gentle voice that she was once a noble brought low, who turned to adventuring simply to survive. A shy blush blooms on her cheeks as she admits she built herself up from nothing. And in that way she feels they are alike, so she hopes they can journey together. Loa thinks for a moment, then admits they're back. The battle with the king frog showed him just how brutal fighting alone could be, while having a solid tank like Sonia at his side would let him balance offense and defense. So he agrees to team up. Sonia accepts with a warm, grateful smile and vows she'll repay his kindness. They clink their wine glasses, the clear ring sealing the pact. The next morning, Loa is fast asleep when Sonia bursts into his room and announces, "It's already late, so I'll punish him if he doesn't wake up." She playfully taps him with her shield, and Loa shoots upright, utterly baffled to find her standing over him. Startled by the ambush, he demands to know why she's there, and Sonia cheerfully explains their rented rooms are next to each other. His door just happened to be unlocked. Loa groans, remembering that after exchanging the magic stone last night, he walked Sonia to her lodge only to discover they were staying in the same place, and that he'd drunk far too much. When Sonia asks if he always sleeps this late, Loa mutters that he's the sleep in peace type. She grins and volunteers to wake him every morning. Loa protests that he does not want another shield tap, so Sonia laughs and says that in that case he should rise early, even teasing that his sleeping face is cute. Watching her leave, Loa surveys the now rumbled bed covers and momentarily regrets the partnership. A short while later, Sonia returns and announces she has already delivered the party creation form, and because registered members can view one another's status, Loa checks hers. Her full name is Sonia Clark. She is 17, and her level is 65. He is amazed to see her death listed at 500, nearly 8 times higher than his own, and Sonia scans his card and praises him for possessing 2 unique skills. Loa's brow furrows in confusion, and Sonia replies with a small smile that she's traveled with many groups but has never come across skills like his, so she thinks he's special. Loa, flustered by the praise, waves it off, and Sonia quickly changes the subject by asking where they'll go today. Loa offers the E-rank dungeon, but he makes it clear they'll only go if she feels comfortable. He tells them the village has an E-rank and an F-rank dungeon. If they beat both bosses, he'll earn another title. And he's hoping Sonia can finally get her first one too. Sonia, eyes bright with excitement, agrees at once. Hearing her enthusiasm, Loa decides to weave a new spell before they leave. At his current level, one option blazes above the rest, so he spends 50 levels to obtain fire. Sonia watches with curious eyes and asks what he did. So Loa explains that his item creation skill can forge anything by eating levels. Moments ago, he had 60, but after buying the spell, he's down to 10. So one solid hit could kill him. Sonia gasps at his casual mention of death, but Loa reassures her that he's always worked this way and everything will be fine. She calls his approach bold and vows to intercept every attack aimed at him, and Loa smiles, counting on her protection. Together, they stride into the dungeon, hearts pounding to test his new spell. In the dungeon, 2 monsters lunge at them, and Loa pleads with Sonia to buy him 4 seconds so he can activate his magic. Sonia shields him, corralling the monsters to one side. Loa thrusts the fire spear and kills them with a single blazing strike, a hit that blows Sonia away. Loa feels heavy, thanks Sonia, and says it's possible because of her. That makes her flush with shyness. While they're thanking each other, another monster appears, and they rush forward to meet it, fighting bravely. After fighting through wave after wave of monsters, they finally reach the bottom level. Tell Sonia she has to kill the monster to claim the title. She nodded, accepting it. She's confused and shaken because the king frog they killed yesterday turned out to be a monster, and she can't stop wondering if there are more. She asks Loa if he knows where the monsters come from, but he doesn't. She explains that monsters are born from magic particles in the air, and the denser those particles are, the stronger the monsters become, so it's common to run into powerful creatures in the dungeon. Even though Loa beat the king frog yesterday, a new king frog could still spawn. Loa agrees, spotting the barrier back up in front of the... Loa meets Sonia's hesitant gaze after she falters at the barrier, and he quietly tells her he will never run away. Encouraged, Sonia lights up, puts her trust in Loa, and they step into the barrier. The king frog appears, and Sonia tells Loa to start chanting while she holds it back. She's dead set on beating it, no matter how many tries it takes. The king frog is even bigger than the one they fought before, but they've changed their plan. The frog lunges, Sonia blocks it successfully. Loa is thrilled that none of the attacks hit him, so he can try his new spells without worry. It will take 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Sonia holds a shield around him against the oncoming attacks, buying the precious seconds Loa needs to cast his new spell. A blazing fireball slams into the monster, killing it instantly. They gape, stunned that it took so much to beat that monster before, while Loa grins, finally realizing they shouldn't underestimate a spell that deals 4,000 damage. A notification bursts in, telling him he defeated a powerful enemy, earned bonus EXP, and shot up from level 38 to 50. They low-five over the EXP and Sonia earning her title, and Sonia beams that they've reached their goals. But the male lead has other motives. He pulls out his knife and starts stabbing the monster, scraping up the materials he missed earlier because he'd been too busy talking. Boys sure love hunting. As a result, he walks away with E-ranked and D-ranked magic stones. Loa stashes them in his item box, which Sonia finds really handy. Loa tells Sonia, his voice firm, that he's leaving Foil Village tomorrow to challenge a D-ranked dungeon. Back in the village cafeteria, they sit and talk about Loa leaving. Sonia says it's better he goes. His strength would be wasted if he stayed, and Loa fires back that the same goes for her. He's level 78 and she's 82, so both can go for D-rank promotions. Sonia agrees, but suddenly they both solve. They had no idea where to find D-ranked dungeons. Even Loa, after all these years in this place, didn't know, and Sonia urged them to buy information from others and hunt for a map, though a dungeon map would be a rare find. Loa's eyes light up as he says he knows a place where they'll find it. He then leads Sonia to the item store, where Carter, once spoiled, greets Loa. Carter bows respectfully and offers to show him the deepest discounts. Loa, the male lead who once showed Carter his place, now watches as Carter looks pitiful and completely changed in personality while they chat so casually. Sonia assumes Carter is a friend of Lois, but Loa cuts in to set things straight. He only comes there when he's needed. When Carter sees Sonia with Loa, he flushes and finally lets his true self show, insisting he's not jealous, yet still snarls at Loa to go and die. Loa asks if they have maps to the dungeon. Carter snaps that they don't. Most adventurers come and take them, when suddenly his father appears behind them and says they do have such maps, which puts a chill into Carter's attitude. His father spreads out the very map he used when he was an adventurer. Loa and Sonia gasp when they realize it's handwritten and ask if they can have it because it looks priceless. And Carter's father replies that he's giving it to them as an apology for his son's stupidity, saying it's better for someone strong to have the map. He also tells Loa and Sonia that if they plan to go to the dungeon, it's best to head for the city of Runbalk in the northeast, which they can reach in 2 days. And Loa and Sonia light up and thank him for the info, mentions they're leaving tomorrow. He says the village will be a lot quieter now. Carter's father says he'll wait to see how much Loa has grown when they meet again. The next morning, Sonia is dragging the sleepy Loa, who mumbles they could leave a little later. But Sonia insists it's best to go in the morning and tells him to walk properly. Loa's eyes said he was finally leaving the village after walking through hell to gain a skill, and when it finally appeared, he could only ask why it decided to show up now. Maybe his hard work is finally paying off. He can't help but thank the Foil village for taking care of him. After leaving the village, Loa and Sonia ran into a stream of weak monsters they cut down with ease, and the magic particles in the air had grown faint now. They can't let their guard down. Every so often magic particles still build up, and a powerful monster could suddenly appear. Loa sneers at the idea they'd be stronger than the dungeon monsters. But mid-sentence a scream rips through the air, and they spin to see a carriage barreling toward them. A little girl cried out for help. It looks like a monster is chasing her, so they rush to save her. Sure, it won't be scary. But once they see it, a grisly creature with a level of 130, they immediately regret their assumptions and both freeze in terror. Still, Sonia, trembling, tells Loa she'll distract it while he starts chanting, and seeing her shake, Loa tells her to calm down because, with this much distance, she wouldn't have to do anything. He unleashes his fireball magic. The monster falls in a single shot. Sonia praises Loa, whose level jumps to 80. The girl from the carriage barrels toward Loa and flings herself into his arms, tears in her eyes as she thanks him and gasps that he saved her life. She introduces herself as Masha, looking like a lowly nobody. Sonia snaps that it's rude to hug someone who's crying right after they just saved your life. She offers Masha a napkin and tells her to wipe her tears, teasing that she'll look so much cuter that way. And Masha thanks Sonia for her kindness. She explains that she's a traveling merchant, so used to this road she let her guard down and didn't notice the magic particles building up. And though she thought she was headed to Runbalk, she suddenly realized she was going the wrong way. Loa says they're headed there too and urges her to give them a ride in her carriage. Masha says she would have gladly done so. Her carriage overflowed with goods. She'd packed so much because Runbalk was bursting with adventurers and travelers. But our hero has a solution. He tucks all the products into his item box. Masha nearly loses it when her goods vanish, but Loa soothes her, saying he tucked them safely into his item box. And Masha lights up at the thought that mages can do that while Sonia agrees, calling Loa-san impressive. Well, she's our male lead's biggest fan. Loa spreads some dry grass on the carriage, clears a spot to lie down, and starts his favorite thing, sleeping. Masha gets excited again and says mages can get tired after using magic, but Sonia clarifies that Loa is just a sleepy head. Both of them climb into the carriage and head on to Runbalk, as Sonia and Masha keep themselves busy in all sorts of ways while our male lead keeps sleeping. When they reach Runbalk, Sonia wakes Loa up. Loa's eyes lit up at the crowds and towering buildings, and when Masha saw his wonder, she figured it was his first time in Runbalk, and told him that lots of adventurers there take on requests. Noah thanks Masha warmly and asks her to stop the carriage, saying they'll walk from there, then returns all of her products. Masha beams with excitement and eagerly offers Loa the chance to be her merchant partner. But Sonia won't hand Loa over, so she falters and reluctantly says no. Masha waves them off and tells Loa to spread the word about her shop once he becomes a stronger adventurer. After a while, Loa and Sonia reach an inn and decide to stay, and Sonia suggests they share a room to save money. Loa refuses. He says he'd rather pay more and take 2 rooms. Sonia insists she's perfectly fine sharing one, but he still refuses, saying he couldn't sleep because she's just too cute. When Loa murmurs that Sonia is cute, she goes bright with fluster, and the inn employee watching them, clearly annoyed, tells them to move along if all they're doing is flirting. Loa takes the keys and tells Sonia not to worry. They'll earn back the money they spent on the inn when they go into the dungeon tomorrow. Tanya's dream of sharing a room with Loa is crushed, so she sulks, and Loa, puzzled, can't understand why. In his mind, he was only being a gentleman. The next morning, Sonia bursts in to tell Loa there's a D-ranked dungeon nearby. She'd learned about it from the guild while he was sleeping. Loa, usually not a morning person, is somehow bright and refreshed today thanks to Sonia. He even has a new hairstyle. When they arrive at the D-ranked dungeon, they can feel its aura, thicker and stronger than the previous dungeons. Loa is buzzing with excitement. It's his first time entering a D-ranked dungeon, and Sonia tells him that if things go wrong he should run and leave her behind because her life belongs to him. She's ready to sacrifice herself. Loa refuses to abandon her. With that, both of them step into the dungeon. The inside looks pretty normal, but Sonia explains she heard this dungeon used to be an underground sewer, and since monsters take on traits from their environment, most of the monsters here are water type. A lower mulls over how every element has its strengths and weaknesses. The one with the advantage deals double damage, while the one at a disadvantage only deals half. Both his fire spear and fireball are at a disadvantage here, so he's down to only 2 uses. He's got 440 MP, and the great fireball costs 200 MP. He can't wait to fight these new monsters. Just as he's thinking all this, Sonia cries out that a monster is approaching, and Loa readies himself. He sees a red armored crab with aim for the recommended level of 150. The crab's kinda disappointing. It only snaps with 1 claw, so Loa yells for Sonia to shield him while he calls up his magic. Sonia uses her distraction skill like a shield, protecting him. Vova hurls his massive fireball in a fierce attack. 1 shot isn't enough, so he pulls the trigger again. They finally stop this monster. Relief floods them, but Loa's MP is almost gone. The crab strikes again, so Sonia. She throws up a shield, buying him 10 precious seconds to recover. Loa thanks her and gulps down an MP restoration potion. As soon as he's restored, he hurls another huge fireball. At last the monster falls. He earns bonus EXP and reaches level 82. They gather the crystals, and Loa admits he's worried. It took 3 shots to kill that monster, so using items will only slow him down, and Sonia suggests learning lightning magic. Loa nods and agrees, opens his status window, and spots the skill he's been itching to try. Lightning Javelin. It costs 150 MP and requires level 50. It hits a bit weaker than the Great Fireball, but it uses less MP and casts faster, and since the element's on our side here, it should help. Sonia tells him that if he learns the spell, his level will drop to 32. After that, even a single hit could be fatal. Loa reassures her, saying she doesn't need to worry. She's with him, and all she has to do is pull enemies away from him. That's what she does best. Sonia beams, thanks him, and giggles at the compliment. Loa grabs the lightning javelin skill and they head deeper into the dungeon, feeling the darkness close in around you. Loa and Sonia head deeper into the dungeon. As it gets darker the further they go, Sonia scoots in closer to Loa and, in a cute, worried voice, says it might be dangerous. Loa says they should watch their step and brighten the place. He'll use his light magic so she won't be scared. Sonia feels a little disappointed, but the scouts chime in again. It's cold, they say. We should stay close. Loa takes care of it and uses firewood to start a fire. She makes tea to warm up, and Sonia's attempts to get closer to Loa keep failing. Sitting there, heavy with sadness, she takes a sip of the tea, delight spreading across her face, and asks Loa what it's made of. Loa told her he'd bought it from a farmer with his own money, hoping the former noble, Sonia, might like it. Sonia, impressed, called him a gentleman, and when Loa asked what she meant by actually, she teased that it was because he's always a sleepyhead. As they talk, a monster suddenly appears. A squid-like creature that targets regus, people with romantic partners, and has a recommended level of 155. A slimy tentacle shoots out and grabs Sonia. Goa quickly unleashes a lightning javelin. Bring the monster down in one fierce strike! His level jumps to 55, and he lights up at the big boost and the faster casting time. Sonia thanks him and praises his new magic. Loa explains, voice tight, that it has weaknesses and doesn't deal as much damage as the Great Fireball, so he'll have to choose wisely during battles. Loa is having so much fun. It's written all over his face, and Sonia teases him, saying he looks like a teenager. Loa realizes he's having far more fun than he'd expected. He pulls a goofy face and asks Sonia if he still looks like a teenager, and tells him not to pull those weird faces. She says he looks like a slime, wrung out like an old rag, a description that makes no sense to Loa. After a while, they head to the guild in runbalk and present their magic stones. He stepped up to the woman at the counter and asked her to exchange them for money. Surrounded by a horde of deranged stones, she asks for their guild cards, and when she spots a bronze card, she flat out says she doesn't believe they earned those stones. Loa quickly insists he didn't steal them. She tells them to wait while she calls an appraiser. Lois slumps, shoulders sagging as frustration claws at him. Nobody trusted him. Sonia comforts him, saying it's probably just because they're new in town and small parties rarely bring in this many stones. Loa still feels hopeless, so Sonia tells him he is the strongest, and then the appraiser comes. Examines the stones with a steady, careful eye, then at last smiles. They're genuine and freshly harvested. Panics, the counter lady, apologizes to Loa, explaining she had never seen low-ranked adventurers with so many stones. And Loa sighs again, thinking he should slow down in the next town because he overdid it today. The counter lady, trying to apologize, offers to buy the stones at a higher price, and Loa and Sonia can't help feeling lucky. The appraiser asks if they really need that much money, and Loa says it's for lodging because they've been traveling so much. Then the appraiser suggests they try the monster's house next. He says it's an area teeming with monsters that sometimes pops up in deranged dungeons. Confident adventurers should try it. To Loa and Sonia, it sounds like a big opportunity to earn more. After a while in the dungeon, Loa, so excited that sparkles dance in his eyes, asks Sonia if she's ever seen monster houses before. He feels pure joy just thinking about wiping out a huge number of monsters with one hit. Seeing how excited he is, Sonia tells him to calm down. He's making the face of a teenager again. And though she's never seen a monster house before, she agrees it's a good place to level up. She worries that with so many enemies, his mana will be drained. But Loa grins and tells her he found the perfect spell for that last night. He flings open his status window and shows her an AoE spell, the air trembling with unleashed power. Thunderstorm. It devours 400 MP and about 151 levels. Sonia is impressed it has such high base damage, but she points out the MP cost is a real problem, and Loa agrees. He can't afford it right now. He's only level 101, so they can't buy the spell just yet. They're in no hurry. They can take all the time they need to level up. The mana problem? Loa already has a plan. He sees one item, the Ring of Magic, costs 50 levels, so he grabs it and slips it on. Sonia beams that his hands look pretty and even compliments him, which does not. Dumbfound lowers his head, but he still thanks her. Suddenly, a monster appears. They both throw themselves back into the fight, spending several days in the dungeon to level up. On the first day, they collected D-rank magic stones and leveled up. Loa rocketed from level 51 to 112, while Sonia climbed from 115 to 138. Though Sonia stopped getting bonus EXP after hitting level 130 because the monsters are around level 150. On the second day, they gather more stones. Loa rockets to level 150. Sonia hits 150 right alongside her, and they split the party so Loa can solo for a little while. And he finally reaches 151. On the third day, Loa thinks he can finally get the Thunderstorm skill, only to realize he needs to be level 151 to survive, not just 150, since he can't drop to 0. A red armored crab right in front of him levels up to 151. He finally acquires Thunderstorm and drops back to level 1, but he feels no regret because the Ring of Magic fills him with tons of mana. Sonia can't believe her eyes. He's so cheerful even at level 1. She beams, eager to see him use the new skill, and Loa scrambles to pull the party back together. But he can't send her an invite. Sonia tutor. Someone tells him it's probably because the level difference is too big. A difference of 100 levels prevents party formation. Someone might try to party up with a high-ranking adventurer just to benefit from their strength, so Loa will have to level up again, and Sonia cheers him on, saying he'll get there before she goes off to lure some monsters near him. He and Loa both urge her to be careful. Can't believe how fast he gained levels in 2 days, especially after grinding so hard in Foil Village just to reach level 50. He wonders what kind of monster he couldn't defeat now. While he's thinking, Sonia's desperate cry for help slices through the quiet. He turns and sees her sprinting toward him, 8 monsters snapping at her heels. Loa bursts into a rapid chant, shouting for Sonia to run straight to him. Casting Storm takes 7 long seconds. It's an AoE spell. One mistimed cast could strike Sonia, but if he waits too long, it'll already be too late. He times the spell to go off the instant Sonia reaches him. Seeing she's out of breath and spent, he wonders if she'll make it. Sonia shouts from afar, urging Loa to unleash his magic. She promises she'll dodge somehow, but when Loa looks at her tired, worn-out face, he can't bring himself to trust her. He just needs 2 seconds. As Sonia and the monster draw near, Loa calmly tells her to leap over him. The instant she does, he unleashes his Thunderstorm spell. She smashed every monster behind her with a single thunderous blow. Sonia freezes, eyes wide, watching in shock as they all collapse at once. Suddenly, Loa is slammed by a flood of notifications. He has just defeated a giant monster, and his level has shot up to 110. They both froze, stunned. Loa bursts into a joyful shout, cheering loudly at such a huge accomplishment. Sonia admires his strength too. They're amazed he managed to wipe out 8 monsters in a single attack. Loa is glad Sonia is unharmed. She hardly ever makes mistakes like this, and Sonia admits she thought Loa could handle them all, got a little too confident and drew in too many monsters. But Loa brushes it off, telling her not to worry, because in the end everything worked out for the best. He earned a mountain of EXP, and the loop was absolutely incredible. He starts stuffing every last thing into his item box. Sonia, cheeks flushed and a soft smile playing on her lips, says cleaning the house would be so much fun if she could do it with Loa. Loa tilts his head in confusion, not quite understanding her, when suddenly a voice echoes from deep within the dungeon, crying for help. And without a second thought, Loa and Sonia dart toward it. They find a man surrounded by monsters, fighting with everything he's got to stay alive. And the moment he sees Loa and Sonia, he cries out, pleading for help. He admits he was far too reckless and now he's trapped, unable to escape. Loa and Sonia quickly decide to step in. Loa asks Sonia to lure the monsters out to just the right distance. He finally knows exactly how far his area of effect spell reaches. Sonia does exactly that, then lets loose his magic once more, wiping every enemy out with a single devastating blow. The man is left speechless, his jaw hanging open, stunned by the raw power Loa just displayed. Loa darts over to him, breathless and asking if he's hurt or bleeding, while the man, still stunned, keeps thanking him over and over and stares at Loa as notification screens hover around him, showing his recent level-ups. The man's shouts and raw disbelief burst out, prompting Loa, calm as ever, to tell him to relax. Loa and Sonia sit with the man from the dungeon in the cafeteria. He lets out a relieved breath, grateful just to be alive, and, smiling, insists on treating them. "Eat as much as you want," he says. "I'm covering the whole meal." Tears in his eyes and his heart full of feeling, Loa digs into the delicious food before him, and the man introduces himself as Eric, a D-rank adventurer. Sonia greets them politely, then introduces Loa, and Eric eyes Loa's thin frame with a grin, joking that if he looks so frail he must secretly be crazy strong. He should have been at least C-rank, judging by how strong his magic was back there. But then Loa casually tells him he's only E-rank. Eric almost chokes on his food, eyes wide as he stares in disbelief and blurts out if Loa is new to adventuring, and Loa just shrugs with a grin, saying he's been doing it for a while now. Sonia tries to explain that Loa's situation is messier than it seems, and Eric takes it in with a puzzled but gentle face. No judgment, no sneer, he just can't wrap his head around it. Loa steers the conversation and asks Eric if he had a party with him earlier in the dungeon. Eric answers that he used to. They kicked him out for not meeting their expectations. He tried going solo after that and got overwhelmed. Loa doesn't know what to say, since it's the same old story for adventurers, and Eric looks down muttering that maybe his prime days are over. Sonia jumps in, telling him it's not the end, but just the beginning. Eric laughs and teases. "Want to join me and start a new party?" Sonia refuses at once, blunt and sharp, and he just laughs again, saying he was only kidding. Greg starts talking about how so many D-rank adventurers quit the moment they hit a wall. He says he's decided he's done playing around. Instead of risking his life in dungeons every day, he wants to open a workshop and make tools. And Loa supports the idea, cheerfully pointing out he might still gain EXP from doing that kind of work. Loa leans in and asks Eric if he's been in runbalk long, and if he knows what kind of monster the dungeon boss is. Eric admits he's never made it that far, guesses the boss must be at least C-rank, and warns Loa that taking it down would demand a spell strong enough to fell it in a single strike. Eric tells them to take on more guild jobs and raise their ranks first, warning them to keep their heads down. Strong adventurers become easy targets, especially for the shady people in the guild. Loa says he's used to shady types, thinking back to Carter, and Eric laughs, teasing that Loa's face just draws trouble. Loa pouts, clearly annoyed, and with that playful exchange their night ends over a good meal and warm laughter. The next morning, Loa wakes up feeling groggy after a deep sleep. As he stretches and thinks back to the night before, he hears the soft rustle of movement beside him. He turns his head and freezes. Sonia is sleeping beside him, and Loa's eyes go wide as he stares, completely stunned. Sonia stirs in her sleep, half awake, and smiles when she sees him. Sure, it's just a dream. Loa bolts upright with a jolt, startled and unsure what to do. He checks quickly, sees both of them fully dressed, and lets out a relieved breath as he realizes nothing happened. Sonia bolts fully awake and, realizing where she is, her eyes fly wide in horror as she flushes bright red and jumps up, utterly flustered, while Loa stammers that he thinks she carried him back to his room and fell asleep too. She must have been exhausted. Sonia, mortified and stunned, realizes it wasn't a dream. Without another word, she rushes out of the room like a whirlwind, slamming the door behind her. Loa stares at the door, completely confused. He honestly thought he was being a perfect gentleman, and mutters to himself that he really doesn't understand girls. Later that day they headed to the guild, excitement and nerves buzzing between them. At the counter, the receptionist greeted them cheerfully. She mentions that Eric told her all about how they saved him with their magic, and teases that it must have been quite the night for them, as Loa looks away awkwardly and Sonia glares. The receptionist asks for their guild cards, checks them, and counts the magic stones they turned in the day before, then beams and congratulates them both. They've been promoted to D rank. Loa beams as he receives his new silver guild card, the newcomer tag fading away, and mage taking its place. The counter lady points toward the quest board and suggests they take a look at today's listings. As they approach the board, Sonia spots one that stands out, a monster house subjugation mission with a jaw-dropping reward of 150,000 mure. Loa lights up at the amount, but Sonia voices her concern. The mission is 6 floors deep in the D-rank dungeon, which they haven't explored yet. Loa shrugs off the worry, grinning that he's packed with levels today, and decides to take the quest. Just then, a group of adventurers strode up, one of them smirking that the Monster House quest was already theirs, giving Loa and Sonia a bored once-over and jeering, "So you're the rumored duo," their tone dripping with arrogance and disdain. They're clearly trying to intimidate the two, mocking their looks and sneering that they wouldn't last long in a real fight. Loa narrows his eyes at them while Sonia stays calm but ready, and the tension is thick as the air between the groups grows heavier by the second. Lois snaps back, eyes flashing, demanding what he means by the rumored duo, while the other adventurers explain that people have been talking about them lately. They're the duo where the tank never raises a hand, and the mage wipes the whole place out with one shot. Loa apologizes, looking regretful. He can't give them the quest because they've been after the monster house for so long now. One of the adventurers suddenly snatches the quest paper from his hands, shouting that it's too soon for them to take it, and he panics until his body disappears. Party members, with Jake apparently in charge, rush in to hold him down and calm him, while a girl in the group tells Loa and Sonia to leave as they keep him pinned. Both of them, bewildered, walk out and leave the chaotic trio behind. Somehow the two of them manage to reach the dungeon's 5th floor. They defeated the monster, but they're utterly exhausted. Jake had dragged his team along and was trailing behind them. Now they were spying from behind a wall. One of Jake's teammates pointed out they were basically stalkers at this point, but Jake shot back that he wanted to see them cry for taking the monster house lightly. The girl doubted it. She thinks Lo is the kind of mage who can wipe everything out with a single blow, and from the way he uses elemental advantages and his attacks, she's certain only mages above C rank could pull that off. So he's even stronger than her, and she even thinks he's pretty good looking, which irritates Jake. He snaps that there's nothing great about using magic, especially since they can't use it in runbalk, refuses to let anyone compare them to Loa and Sonia, and when he tells the other two they're the #1 team, they're just grateful to be called #1 by him. At last, Loa and Sonia reach the 6th floor, and Sonia suggests that since Loa's at level 100, they're about to gain a ton of levels, so he should use some of them now. Loa agrees, opens his status window, and grabs the 3 magic skills he's been wanting. A blinding flash of lightning, mithril sword, and a body. Loa needs 500 attack points to unlock lightning flash, but he's stuck at only 130 right now, so he reluctantly sticks with the mithril sword for the time being. Sonia can't help staring. He looks so cool she can hardly believe he's only level 2. All Loa needs now is to grind EXP, so he asks Sonia if he should disband the party. Sonia beams and happily agrees, since that'll let him earn a lot more EXP. Once everything's ready, they burst into the monster house. As expected, the place is crawling with terrifying monsters, and the pressure is crushing. Sonia snaps at Loa, ordering her to wipe them out in one hit with AoE magic. Otherwise, the long chant and MP drain will get them into serious trouble. Sonia swears she'll protect Loa with everything she's got, but he tells her to run if it ever gets that bad. With that, he roars at the monsters, daring them to come at him. The 3 stalkers stand frozen, wide-eyed as he taunts the monsters with shocking boldness. Jake grows nervous, certain the monsters are so deadly they won't even leave Loa's bones behind. Finally, after 7 long seconds, Loa casts Thunderstorm at the charging monsters, and the massive, thunderous attack wipes them out in a single blow. Jake stands speechless, trying to piece together who Loa really is. After cutting down wave after wave of monsters and leveling up, Loa is flooded with a kind of happiness he's never felt before, and he can feel it too. A torrent of power rushes through him as his level hits 170. Sonia beams, praising him for gaining so many levels in one go, and shows him the materials they'd gathered from every monster. Loa beams with joy, but knowing they can't carry everything, they take only the rarest ones. The 3 trailing them still couldn't believe Loa had wiped out an entire monster house with a single strike. Jake's partner swore no one in runbalk could use magic like that. He tells Jake that, even though it's frustrating, they have to accept this loss because Loa and Sonia are clearly the best in the city right now, and Jake grows irritated, saying he is not going to accept it. They decide, heart pounding, to challenge Loa to a duel. His partner tries to pull him back, saying Loa and Sonia are on a whole other level. but Jake refuses to back down. He's convinced that since they know this dungeon better than anyone, they might be able to win if they use the rules to their advantage. He starts imagining he's the strongest and calls himself a genius, while his partner sighs and calls him a musclehead. He feels helpless. Jake isn't listening, and nothing he says gets through. He explains that if they challenge them to a duel, the rules will be set by others, and making a scene could tank their reputation and scores. So Jake actually listens this time and asks Dory, their female party member, if she's okay with the idea. Dory is utterly adrift, swept away by her admiration for Loa. Sonia walks away, leaving the rest of the materials behind. This chaotic trio is really something else. And Sonia makes it to the guild for the item exchange. Other adventurers are already buzzing, excitedly talking about how they cleared an entire monster house. Sonia whispers to Loa that she can feel everyone's eyes on them, and Loa reassures her, saying they're becoming famous now. After defeating a monster house, people are going to talk for a few days. He then points at their rewards. 120,000 for the magic stone and materials, 150,000 for the quest, and announces a whopping 853,000 in total. Sonia beams, thrilled that they're earning money so fast, and Loa says they can finally enjoy a little luxury, although he's still nervous about spending so much since he's always been poor, something he's always wanted to try. They go to a restaurant for steak, and when Sonia sees the plate she lights up, saying it's been a long time since she had something this delicious. Loa sits quietly, and Sonia gently reminds him not to cry just from seeing good food. He smiles and says he's not a fool anymore. The smell of tasty meat won't make him cry anymore. He's no longer poor. He picks up the knife and fork, but the awkward way he holds them makes Sonia realize something, and she can't help asking if he even knows how to use them. Our poor baby Loa, who isn't poor anymore, bursts into tears, saying he's always eaten bugs and grass with his hands and never learned to use utensils. Sonia soothes him, tells him to follow her example, and cuts a piece of steak, and he holds it near his mouth, and Loa nibbles at it like a baby. He instantly loves it. The steak is so delicious he snaps back to his usual self and bursts into tears again, crying with pleasure as they keep eating. Jake shows up sneering, mocking them as he says he still can't believe Loa and Sonia actually beat those monsters. Loa pushes herself up and asks him what he wants this time. Jake glares, daring him to a duel in 3 days. Loa refuses without hesitation, and Dory steps in, calling Jake an idiot before telling Loa to listen to her. She blushes as she takes his hand and says, not everything needs to be solved through violence, and it's clear she has feelings for Loa, though not as strong as Sonia's, who stands nearby with a sulky look after seeing Dory touch him. Dory explains they'll hold a timed subjugation battle. Whoever defeats the dungeon boss first wins, and she tells them that it's already been arranged with the guild. If Loa and Sonia win, they'll be promoted to C rank. Seeing Dory cling to Loa, Jake asks his teammate why she's not in her usual robe, and the teammate snaps that Dory never smiled like that around him, both of them bristling with jealousy. Sonia urged Loa to accept the challenge. Loa doesn't like challenges, but he knows he'll have to defeat the dungeon boss eventually. So he agrees to the duel. After that, Loa and Sonia begin preparing for the upcoming challenge, every move charged with nervous focus, and Eric warns the dungeon boss is basically a C-rank monster. Bracing herself to face it, Loa learns a new skill called Purple Light. When he learns the skill, his level drops by 20, a brutal sting, but he bounces back fast. Meanwhile, if Sonia's Iron Wall and distraction skills reach level 10, she unlocks new abilities, so the two of them grind on, learning the right pace. On the day of the duel, both of them finally hit level 200, and now they were full of confidence that they wouldn't lose easily. At last, both teams stand face to face, ready for the challenge. The duel has turned into a full-blown show, a huge crowd pouring in to watch as the counter lady from the guild hosts and announces the start, firing up the audience who roar loud cheers for both sides. Loa asks Jake how it turned into such a public event, and Jake says people poured in after word of the story spread. The counter lady tells everyone the rules. They must defeat the dungeon boss and come back with the teleportation stone while being recorded, and a small enchanted gadget called the magical timer will track their time. To claim victory, they must bring back the boss's magic stone, and with the appraiser watching, there's no way to cheat. The duel begins. The woman at the counter asks who will enter the dungeon first, and Jake's group steps forward to go in. Jake turns to Loa and bellows, "We'll be back in a few seconds, so don't run off," then quickly adds that he has no reason to run away. Dory saunters over to Loa, trying to act cute. Really, she's just showing off her figure, and tells him that even if he hates Jake, he shouldn't hate her. Jake, clearly annoyed, calls out for her to hurry so they can get going. An hour and a half later, Sonia sits beside Loa, sulking and pouting. She turns to him and, clearly thinking of Dory, asks if men prefer women with bigger breasts. Loa replies that it depends on the person, but he prefers someone like Sonia, someone he can fight alongside, and the idea instantly lights up her face. As they chat, word reaches them that Jake's party has returned. They finished in 1 hour and 32 minutes, way faster than the usual 2-hour average. The crowd cheers for Jake as he glances back at Loa and Sonia with a smug grin, telling them that beating their time will not be easy. Hearing that, Loa and Sonia remember reaching the lower floor yesterday in just an hour. As long as they don't slip up, they've still got a real shot at winning. Inside the dungeon, they fight through monsters in a calm, steady rhythm. Loa says they're doing their best to avoid pointless fights and admits he feels more in sync with Sonia now, and Sonia agrees, saying they reached the floor faster this time, so they definitely have a shot at winning. Loa warns her not to relax yet. They still haven't defeated the dungeon boss, but Sonia flashes a bright smile and tells him she'll show how reliable she can be. The Lizard King monster watches their cheerful conversation and, still heartbroken from getting dumped the night before, quietly starts to cry. At last, they reach the lowest floor. At the edge of the barrier, Loa asks Sonia if she's ready, and Sonia answers, calm and certain, that they're not going to lose, and they step through the barrier and face the dungeon boss, a fearsome monster named Kelpie, with a recommended level of 400. Sonia snaps its attention away at once, keeping it from attacking Low period. Loa begins casting his spell, Purple Lightning. It takes 2 seconds to form and only has a short range, but that's more than enough for this moment. Loa lets the spell loose. He slams the kelp and defeats it in a single blow. He instantly gets a notification. His level has shot from 200 to 270, and he's earned the title, Conqueror of Runbelt. In the dungeon, Sonia lights up. She's thrilled they beat a rank C Kelpie with a single hit. Loa tells her the purple lightning hits for 12,000 damage, and because it's an advantageous element against Kelpie, it doubles to 24,000. No monster could survive that. He races to snatch the magic stone and decides they'll teleport out of the dungeon. Just then, Sonia's instincts prick and she knows something is wrong. She looks around, heart sinking. The boss is defeated, but the barrier still stands. Loa can't believe it at first. They clearly beat the dungeon boss, but Sonia suddenly turns his gaze upward and tells him to look at the ceiling. Loa stares up in shock as a new monster materializes, the soul of the pirate William, with a recommended level of 1,000. This is the dungeon's extra boss, and the surprise slams into them both, knocking the wind out of them. Without hesitation, the extra boss charges at Loa with a devastating full-force attack. Sonia fires off her distraction skill to protect him, only to freeze in shock as it doesn't faze the monster. And despite her every effort, the boss keeps singling out Loa. It swings its sword at him, but Loa just manages to dodge the attack. Back outside the dungeon, the counter lady calls out with a tight voice that 45 minutes have passed, and Loa and Sonia still haven't come back. From behind, Jake says they must have been defeated by now. Dory snaps back that they wouldn't be beaten that easily, and the two begin arguing. To distract them, the counter lady offers to tell a scary story while they wait, and with a slow, hush-filled voice she paints a spooky scene. Besides the dungeon boss, there's an extra boss that only appears when someone meets a very specific, almost impossible condition. And it's so dreadfully powerful that those who've seen it simply brace themselves for death. But no one has ever reported an extra boss showing up in this dungeon, and Jake, clearly terrified, suddenly yells at her to stop scaring him. Meanwhile, the other two stand there, completely unfazed. Inside the dungeon, the extra boss swings its sword at Loa, who barely manages to block. Strike. Despite the block, Lois is doubled over in pain because his body is only B rank, and to make matters worse, their teleport magic is down. They have to beat the boss to power the teleport stone. And for someone at level 270 to face a boss meant for level 1000 feels almost impossible. From behind, Sonia shouts to Loa to put some distance between them and hit it with Thunder Javillon, and Loa follows her secret. And casts Thunder Javillon! But the monster easily sidesteps the attack, slipping away like a dark blur. It shocked them both. In a flash, the monster drops low and slams a savage kick into Loa's stomach, launching him crashing into the wall. Watching Loa get hit, Sonia instantly throws herself in front of him to shield him, and the monster's furious gaze snaps to her. She urges Loa to pull himself together as she buys him time. Loa is badly injured, and he was down to only 120 horsepower from a single kick. He'd expected trouble against a magic-resistant enemy, but this could be the true test. If he can't overcome this, magic alone won't take him to the top. He remembers Eric saying many people give up around rank D, but Loa climbed all the way up from the very bottom. He's no stranger to struggle and isn't about to give up now, so he starts tearing apart why his attack missed. Maybe it was the distance, or maybe because he cast it right in front of the monster. Even if he darted into the blind spot, the monster could still strike back. So no matter how fast he tried to cast a follow-up spell, he'd be dead before it finished. It hits him. Chant time isn't the issue anymore. He must take the monster's blows and fight it up close with his sword. Loa pushes himself up and draws his weapon, relief flooding him. He's got a spell made for this kind of fight, body strengthening. First, he digs into his item box, pulls out potions, and restores his MP. After spending 200 levels learning the new skill, it's finally time to put it to use. He activates body strengthening, tripling his strength to the absolute maximum. This gives a massive boost to both his attack and defense. The spell eats up 10 MP every second. With the current multiplier, it jumps to 30 MP per second, so he has 34 seconds of enhanced strength. He takes a deep, steady breath that eases his racing nerves, telling himself it will be fine. He's not alone. Sonia is right there and can help him get his MP back. He calls to her for cover as he lunges into close combat. Sonia is stunned by the sudden change in strategy and questions his decision, but Loa is already committed. He moves forward and faces the monster head-on. This moment marks the start of a close-range battle between a level 270 and a level 1000. The battle between Loa and the monster erupts. They both lunge and clash, blades sparking, yet neither can drive home a single solid hit. Lois's strikes keep missing, but at least he's not getting hit himself. That's a relief. He lunges again, and after a hard struggle, he finally lands a shallow cut. Though it's minor, it sparks a tiny thread of hope in him. Even with danger closing in, Loa realizes he's caught up in the thrill of the fight. The monster strikes back, but this time Loa meets the attack head-on and blocks the blow. He notices his MP is starting to run low, and would much rather recover some before things get worse. Out of nowhere, the monster appears behind him, ready to spring a surprise attack. Loa is stunned, completely caught off guard. But before the strike can land, Sonia explodes forward and stops the attack with her skill called Disco. Surprisingly, the skill works. Sonia urgently tells Loa to recover quickly, warning she may not be able to hold the monster's attention for long, and Loa thanks her, praising her perfect timing. He gulps a potion to restore his MP and sees Sonia starting to look worn out. They need to end this soon. Loa starts to see a pattern in the monster's movements. As soon as he finishes recovering, he charges at the monster again. The monster, coming forward, moves to attack as well. Loa predicts the monster will go for a single, precise, high-accuracy strike. As the monster swings, Loa ducks at the last second, spots a narrow opening and drives his sword up. Just as the monster lunges for Loa's weapon, Sonia slides in behind it and throws her arms around the beast, locking it tight so it can't move. She calls to Loa, urging him to begin his chant. At that exact moment, the monster suddenly rips free from Sonia's grip, turns the sword on her. Sonia takes the hit, is wounded, and is forced to let go. The monster instantly pivots back toward Loa to launch a counterattack. But now it was too late. The 2 seconds the spell needed had slipped away. Loa hurls a crackling bolt of purple lightning, a clean strike straight through the monster's center. After the final blow lands, Loa looks down at the defeated boss and confidently asks, "How does it feel to be taken down by a D-rank adventurer?" Loa and Sonia finally defeat the monster. Sonia sinks down beside Loa, tears streaking her face as she sobs that she's just glad he's okay. They can hardly believe they beat a deranged boss. Loa insists the magic creation skill is completely broken. Sonia's bold move saved him, and it's even crazier because he toppled that mad enemy at only level 70. Keeps getting ping after ping. Level up notifications keep popping up. Sonia smiled, saying that because he was only level 70, he was probably getting insane EXP, and Loa, eager to see how far his level ups would go, listened as Sonia praised not just his magic, but his swordsmanship, and asked where he'd learned it. And Loa said he'd picked up the basics as a low-level adventurer. Sonia's eyes widen. She can't believe he reached that level from the basics alone, and she tells him that if he put his mind to it, he'd be an amazing swordsman. But Loa just shakes his head, saying doing 2 things at once would split his focus. Besides, magic thrills him more than just swinging a sword, and he still believes he can reach the top using just magic. After the fierce fight, Loa is visibly drained, and they sit together with their hands clasped in a small, sweet pause as Sonia gently tells him to lie down since there's still a bit of time, but he insists the floor is too hard. Suddenly, Sonia blushes and, with a shy smile, places his head in her lap, saying he can lie down for just 5 minutes. A few minutes later, our shy girl is clearly blushing. Loa teases that she's a little stiff. Sonia bashfully tells him not to worry. And by now, Loa has reached level 470 and earned the title Captain after defeating the pirate William Gid, the dungeon's extra boss. Outside the dungeon, the counter lady shouted that the magic timer had stopped. "They're back!" They finished in 1 hour and 29 minutes, a full 3 minutes faster than Jake's team. Jake can't believe it. He insists they know this dungeon better than anyone, so he asks Loa if he really beat the boss and demands proof. Loa, clearly fed up with Jake's drama, lifts the magic stones in silence. Jake's face tightens the moment he sees there are two. The appraiser steps forward and takes the stones for a closer look. He immediately notices one isn't like the usual C-rank kind. Jake laughs, sure this proves they're fakes. But his confidence crumbles when the appraiser says both are real. And one of them turned out to be a B-rank magic stone. Jake is stunned, convinced this dungeon holds no B-rank monsters, and, furious, he snaps at Loa, demanding to know what he wants. Loa shrugs and says casually that he defeated the extra boss. Everyone's dead. Someone is shaken with shock. The counter lady grabs Loa by the collar, saying he has to be kidding. She insists the extra boss only appears under strict conditions, and that most people believe it doesn't even exist. Sonia asks her to explain the conditions. She rattles them off. With just a two-person party, they hit the bottom floor in under an hour and took down the dungeon boss in 30 seconds, and land no more than 3 hits on the boss. She says no one has ever done it, and even she has only heard rumors. Sonia beams proudly and says Loa did it all. Loa cuts in, reminding her not to make it sound like he did it alone. Dory and her party member stand stunned. Dory walks up to hug Loa, clearly impressed, but Sonia leaps in and blocks her. She's not letting another girl take her guy. While Jake's teammate, seeing Jake staring at the ground, tries to comfort him, saying that as frustrating as it is, they have to accept they lost. Overwhelmed, he suddenly started crying, tears streaming, which must have been terrifying for Loa and Sonia. Jake walked up to Loa, held out his hand, and said he acknowledged his strength. He apologizes for how he acted before, voice low and sincere. Loa remembers Carter and compares the two. Jake feels different. He shakes his hand and says he enjoyed the competition in the end. Suddenly people swarm him, tossing offers and compliments, and Jake cuts a path through the crowd, grinning and shouting that they're all drinking together tonight. Dory steps up to Loa, leans in a little, all flirtatious, and asks if they should go out. But Loa glances around awkwardly and says he'd rather go home and sleep. Sonia steps in again, keeping Dory at a firm distance. Surrounded by cheers and warm praise, Loa can't help thinking this all feels pretty good. Later that night, Loa is asleep in his room when Sonia's gentle knock breaks the hush, and she softly asks, "Are you awake?" Getting no response, she slips inside and walks over to where he's sleeping, beautiful in her nightwear. She lays a blanket on the couch and whispers that Loa must have forgotten to lock the door again, because he drank too much. She gently pats his head, sure he must have been really exhausted today. Sitting on the floor beside him, she starts speaking softly, telling him how worried she was, and how she thought he might actually die earlier, how she thanks the heavens that he's okay. Bringing her face close to his, she confesses something she's been holding in, that her feelings might be a burden to him, which is why she's saying them while she finally confesses her love, telling him how grateful she is to have met him. She's just like our Marquesa, still keeping her love a secret even now. The next day at the guild, Loa and Sonia learn they've been promoted to C rank and at last get their new guild cards, now gleaming gold. Tears of joy fill Loa's eyes. Wet-eyed, he turns to Sonia and says, "I finally did it." Sonia giggles, teasing that his bedhead has totally ruined the glorious look they were supposed to have for their promotion. Sitting at the table, Loa asks why Sonia didn't wake him after he slept until noon, and Sonia flushes, nearly blurting out something about his sleeping face before biting back the words and saying she was just tired. Trying to steer the conversation and hide her flush, she asks what they'll do today now that the runbelt dungeon is cleared, and Loa pauses, then points out they've already earned their titles and done everything the city had to offer. He decides it's time to move on to the next dungeon and brings up the idea of buying an earth dragon. Sonia tilts her head, not quite getting it. So Loa lights up and excitedly explains that when adventurers used to visit Foil Village, he often saw them riding earth dragons, creatures faster than horses that can carry a huge load. They've saved another $1 million, so he thinks they can afford one. And Sonia hesitates before gently letting him know. Hearing that earth dragons cost around 10 million more, the excitement drains from Loa's face and he quickly changes tones. They say they shouldn't waste money on convenience. He fixes his hair, pretending he was never that interested to begin with, and just then Eric's voice calls from behind, telling them not to give up yet because he has an offer. Loa and Sonia lean in, paying close attention as Eric speaks. He'd heard they'd defeated the extra boss and told them to stop by his shop. Loa was surprised to learn he even had a store. Eric says he left the adventuring life behind to run an armory, and he only came to the guild to sort some paperwork. By sheer luck, he bumped into them. Filled with gratitude for how they saved him, he invites them over to repay the favor. Loa and Sonia walk into Eric's place, and Loa teases that it looks more like a cowshed than a store. And Eric grins, admitting it really is a cowshed he turned into a shop with his own hands. He explains he sells supplies to adventurers and travelers. He's even been raising horses and earth dragons. Eric reveals an earth dragon to them and says they can have it for free. Both of them stood stunned and overjoyed as Eric told them they'd saved his life, and that there was no reason for them to hesitate. He raised the dragon with careful hands, and he truly believes they'll treat her well. Though he abandoned his childhood dream of adventuring, this earth dragon will take up the trail and live those adventures for him. The dragon nudges up to Loa. She coos at her, smiling at how friendly she is, and he grins, saying she must just love grass. The dragon responds with bright, cheerful energy. Sonia and Eric watch their quick bond and smile. Eric tells Loa he can name her anything he likes, and Loa pauses, remembering the little Yao she made. He bursts out her name with great enthusiasm. Yao Yu Rose Kingdom Inferno Stroganoff Victory Justice. And Sonia and Eric immediately shout that the name is way too long and hard to pronounce. Sona, swept up in the silliness, suggests Caramel Strawberry Extra Whipped Choco Sausage Chan. And when it becomes clear this is going nowhere, Eric settles on Yao as the proper name. Loa hugs the dragon and tacks Kingdom onto her name anyway, deciding to call her Yao Kingdom. Eric chuckles and says he'll deliver any equipment Loa needs later, reminding him that an adventurer can never be too prepared. Everyone crowds around to say goodbye to Loa and Sonia, and Dory sobs, begging Loa why he has to leave so soon. Someone even offered to trade places with Jake, but Sonia calmly replied that she didn't like him. She said it dead serious, and yet somehow still looked utterly adorable. Seeing the huge crowd, Loa asked Jake why so many people had shown up, and Jake said it was because Loa had become quite popular in the city. Of course Jake and his team were famous too, and in his youth, with his usual confident grin, Jake tells Loa that next time they meet they'll win and urges him to stay safe and not get hurt until then. Eric reminds them to take good care of Yao, and Loa sincerely thanks him for everything before climbing up onto Yao. Then gives Sonia a hand and help her climb on too. As the dragon begins to walk, Loa's heart soars with joy at how smooth and thrilling the ride feels. Everyone waves and cheers, voices ringing out as the two of them finally depart runbalk. After they've gone a little way, Sonia can't help noticing how quiet it feels, and Loa smiles and says the people of runbalk were very kind, betting they'll meet more people like that up ahead. He looked up at the sky and, in a low voice, told Sonia he's glad they met back in Foil Village. Sonia's cheeks flush as she looks away. Sonia suddenly wonders if Loa somehow heard her confession from last night and, flustered, asks if he remembers anything. But Loa looks clueless and asks what she's talking about, so Sonia panics and says it's nothing. Then a monster appears, a cobalt knight, ruining the moment and giving them an excuse to fight again. As they ready for battle, Loa studies the map and sees the next town is closer than they'd thought. They set their sights on Almont, the volcano town. Deep in a thick forest, a small hut stands. Then a gang of thieves crashes in, barking orders at the terrified old man, the obvious owner, demanding he leave so they can claim the place. The man pleads with them, saying he has nowhere else to go if they take his home, but the thieves ignore his desperate cries and keep shouting. Just then Loa and Sonia appear, looking completely out of place in this tense situation. They look like they're off on a pleasant picnic, carrying food in their hands, and Loa, perfectly calm, asks the thieves what they're doing. Smiling, Sonia holds up a pot and says she made curry for their dinner, and Loa adds they found tons of crabs in the lake and plan to eat them for breakfast tomorrow. Their casual, carefree attitude angers the thieves, who step forward and demand all their belongings, clearly overestimating themselves as they foolishly believe they can rob the cheerful duo. Loa, not in the mood for nonsense, sparks his magic and casually says they shouldn't steal from others but should show their strength and grow from it. The instant his magic flares to life, the thieves' bravado crumbles away. Loa unleashes a roaring thunderstorm that knocks them all out in a single strike. Here's why Loa and Sonia ended up here. On their way to Almont, they rescued an old man named Erinko, a former adventurer who, to thank them, told them something crucial. Almont survives on mining and hides a dungeon full of fire-type monsters, most of them ranked C or higher. The dungeon was once an old mine, so its tunnels still bristle with traps meant to stop would-be robbers. Deep on the lowest floor waits a massive, flame-wreathed wolf, ranked B and known as the Volcano Hound. After hearing everything, Loa realizes they'll need water-type spells to handle the monsters, and he tells Sonia they'll need spells to deal with the traps. Sonia nods and says that after their fight with the monster pirate William Gid, she picked up new skills, and when a curious Loa asks to see her updated status window, she flashes it, revealing her newly unlocked abilities. Abnormal status, Endurance level 10, Giant Shield level 1, Part to Guard level 1, and Poisonous Shield level 1. Loa is impressed, noting her skill levels have maxed out, and he says if they keep strengthening her poisonous shield skill it could become a real threat to the enemy. He checks his status window and spots a new spell called Water Blade that costs 150 levels to unlock, and he decides to acquire it. It shot his level up to 320. As they kept walking, Sonia thanked Loa. Orinko's detailed information had let them prepare thoroughly. Loa agreed, then wondered aloud why Orinko would live alone in a forest, and Sonia suddenly realized he hadn't been paying attention to Orinko's. She tells how Orinko once fell in love with a fairy he saw only once. He doesn't know if they'll ever meet again, but he keeps waiting. And Sonia, hopeless romantic that she is completely taken by the story. A touching scene. Loa, totally clueless about romance, casually says that dungeon raiding is way more fun. And Sonia, who expected that answer, just sighs. Their voices trailed off the moment they finally arrived at Almond. The city buzzed with life, its streets packed with people. After tucking their earth dragon, Yao, into the stable, Loa and Sonia set off to explore. Loa comments on the city's strange, warm scent, and Sonia explains that it's from the hot springs the city is famous for. So that's why the ends were so expensive, Loa realizes, sulking a little and stung with annoyance that they could only afford one room. Sonia beams, thrilled, saying saving money is always good, but Loa brushes it off and tells her to stand up straight as they're about to enter the dungeon. They've taken a guild job to fetch heat-bore leather for a 30,000 mers reward. Loa feels a mix of excited buzz and nervous worry as he imagines what a C-ranked engine will look like. In no time, they're inside the dungeon. The heat-borer hurtles at Sonia, and she deftly lures it straight toward Loa. Loa casts his newly acquired Water Blade spell, and a sharp, shimmering blade of water erupts into being, and defeats the monster as if it were nothing. Sonia praises him while Loa stands numb, staring at the fallen beast. When Sonia asks what's wrong, he says, surprised, that his level didn't go up. He suspects the monster's subjugation level matched his, so he gained no experience. Sonia giggles, teasing that Loa used to level up after every fight. Loa grins and says it does feel weird, but guesses it's because until now they've mostly been fighting monsters stronger than them. Sonia turns serious and warns him that monsters only get stronger the deeper they descend into the dungeon, and that there will be more traps. As she walks ahead explaining the dangers, she steps on something. A trap springs, smoke spreads all around them, and she falls to the ground, and Loa quickly asks if she's all right. Right. When the smoke finally thins, Sonia answers, I'm fine. It's just... The smoke clears, and Loa sees Sonia on the floor, her clothes gone except for her underwear. He freezes, stunned and silent while Sonia seems totally unfazed, and the whole thing makes no sense to him, leaving him speechless. With Sonia sitting there in just her innerwear, Loa doesn't know where to look or what to say. Awkward and nervous, he tells her she's a good girl and should stay calm and listen carefully, then quickly adds that the smoke is still swirling and he really can't see anything. He frantically gestures for her to hurry up and gather the things that just flew off, while Sonia is still unaware of her current state. She glances down and suddenly realizes the situation. Panic floods her and she cries out in embarrassment. She was asking where her equipment had disappeared, and seeing her so flustered made Loa blush too. Neither of them had any idea how it happened, but it was clear the smoke was a trap that stripped away their gear, and Sonia, cheeks burning, muttered that she should have at least worn cuter underwear. Loa almost hears it, but his brain goes blank at the worst possible second. Sonia springs up, snatches her scattered clothes and snaps at him not to look as she dresses. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, a monster appears. An awkward-looking turtle with a creepy, perverted grin, waddling closer and staring way too intently at Sonia. Caught in the middle of dressing, they freeze under the turtle's shameless stare. Loa reacts in a flash, attacking from behind with her body strengthened and a sharp blade of water. The strike defeats the turtle with brutal ease. He turns his face away and tells Sonia to finish. As he checks the battle results, Sonia, smiling with gratitude, slips into her clothes while Loa keeps his eyes respectfully averted. With Sonia fully dressed and the monster dealt with, they leave the dungeon, walking out together and trading relieved, happy words about finally finishing today's request. However, an unmistakable awkwardness from earlier still clings to the room, like a stubborn coat someone keeps trying to shake off. They trade nervous small talk about how dangerous the traps are, both clearly trying to reset the mood, and Loa apologizes, admitting he thought he could avoid them by observing the area properly, and revealing he recently acquired a skill called the Ring of Detection that cost him 150 levels. He admits he should have made it earlier, but now's better than never, so he decides to make one for both of them. Sonia looks a little worried about the level cost, but Loa assures her he'll regain it quickly. To him, preventing any more equipment mishaps is worth the effort. He crafts the rings. When Sonia gets hers, she smiles sweetly and says, "It's beautiful." She thanked him sincerely from the heart. Later that day, back at the inn, Sonia steps out into the open-air bite. She stretches and lets out a satisfied sigh as the warm water wraps around her after their long journey, so relaxing that she decides this must be why the inn costs so much. And even though she told Loa she'd bathe in the morning, she couldn't wait. She giggles to herself about the events of the past few days, then suddenly notices a figure standing in the mist. Her eyes go wide when she realizes it's Loa in the women's bath. She screams and demands to know why he's there, and Loa, calm as ever, explains that many public baths in these areas are mixed and, as a former noble, she probably didn't know that, while Sonia, at her wit's end, slaps a hand to her face, tired of being seen in awkward situations again and again. Meanwhile, in a quiet part of the forest, a girl adventurer talks to Arinko, surprised to hear someone cleared out the thugs there, and Arinko explains he owes his life to a young mage and a girl with a massive shield. They're far stronger than they look. She'd come only to arrest the thugs, but she can't help being curious about the pair. She vows that if they're as strong as they claim, she'll test them in battle herself, and if they pass, she'll be there, eyes sharp, ready to scout them for knighthood. The next morning, Loa and Sonia sat in Almont's guild hall, and Loa cheerfully said so much had happened the day before that they should gather themselves before heading back into the dungeon. Sonia, however, sits with her eyes shut, quietly turning over her embarrassment. She calmly replies that everything that happened yesterday was her own clumsiness, and then she opens her eyes only to immediately shout. She freezes in horror. Right in front of her sits a strange, utterly unappetizing dish that looks completely revolting. Sonia shudders at the sight, while Loa, totally unfazed and buzzing with excitement, explains it's a special dish called volcanic yamworm sauté, and even gushes that the Almond Guild's menu is way better than the ones they'd had in Foil and runbalk. Warm dishes hardly ever showed up on menus, so he ordered one just to satisfy his curiosity. And when Loa casually asked Sonia if she disliked bugs, she forced a calm smile and admitted that even looking at them made her feel sick. Loa eats the worm like a food critic, casually twirling one on his fork and, to everyone's surprise, describing how the juicy worm bursts in your mouth with a soft crunch, a creamy texture, and a rich flavor. He gushes that the aftertaste is incredible, a cozy swirl of sweet warm essence cut through by a bright tangy sauce, and you'd swear he's the Bear Grylls of adventurers. Sonia watches all this in disbelief, wondering if her rivals are women at all or actual insects, and yet, determined to bond with Loa, she decides to be brave and taste one. A bold move. But it turned out to be a terrible mistake. Later that day in the dungeon, Sonia looks utterly sick. She leans against a wall, pale and weak as Loa gently rubs her back and apologizes for encouraging her to try the worm dish. Sonia groans that it was way too early for her to attempt such a thing. The moment she bit into it, the texture and flavor overwhelmed her in the worst possible way, and just remembering it makes her gag again. A small panic rising, Loa snaps into item creation and quickly conjures a bucket to vomit into. Sonia, cheeks blazing with shame, shouts at him to look away and orders him to go far away. Loa immediately backs off, thinking maybe forming a party wasn't such a great idea after all, while poor Sonia is left heaving behind a rock. And without even knowing it, Loa has just earned himself the new title of Man of Zero Delicacy. At last, the two of them stood on the 4th floor of the Almont dungeon.
Take down a monster!
Loa notices Sonia buzzing with energy again and asks if she's okay. She assures him she's fine now, and Loa feels his level coming back. He's at level 310, so with his power restored, he decides to learn a new spell. He opens his status window, and Sonia standing nearby points out that the dungeon might hide a monster house or even an extra boss, so it'd be wiser for him to get a wide-range water-type spell. Taking her advice, Loa finds a fitting spell called Surface Water Bubbles. It will cost her 300 levels. It costs 900 MP, which makes Loa pause for a beat, but its chant is shorter than his thunderstorms, and one more level will easily fix the MP cost, so he decides to give it a try. But just then, a scream echoed behind them. When they spun around, a girl they knew came running toward them, frantically screaming for help.
It's Masha, and a pack of monsters is chasing her!
Loa, unsure why Masha is even here, sizes her up and braces himself. Then, without a second thought, he fires up a spell to strengthen his body. He scoops Sonia up into his arms, and springs up to a higher area. Sonia, suddenly scooped up, is clearly flustered and goes bright red, while Loa above watches how fast Masha is running, impressed by her speed. Sonia, still half embarrassed, mutters that Masha probably has some kind of agility skill, and with Masha safely out of the attack zone, Loa finally triggers the surface water to erupt in a burst of shimmering bubbles. In a flash, the new spell wipes out every monster with a single thunderous blast. Masha, watching from below, stares up in shock. She recognizes that kind of magic. It could only be Loa. She starts running toward him, but just as she moves, she trips and falls face first onto the ground. Loa rushes, is over to check on her. Masha, lying on the ground, looks up with a grin and says excitedly that she knew it was Loa. But Loa, buried under a flurry of glowing notifications, doesn't respond right away, and Masha grows confused and hurt, wondering why he's ignoring her, until Loa finally peeks out from behind the lights, apologizes, and asks her to wait until everything calms down. Chapter 142. Tears well up in Masha's eyes as she sees Loa and Sonia again after such a long time, and overwhelmed with happiness, she throws her arms around Loa in a tight hug, crying that he saved her not once but twice. She is just as adorable as Masha from that old cartoon, Masha and the Bear. But Sonia gently pulls her back, saying she cannot go around hugging someone just because they saved her. Instead, she gently hands Masha a napkin for her tears, and Masha thanks Sonia with a grateful smile, warmed by her kindness. It almost feels like a flashback to when they first met. Curiosity bright in her eyes, Loa asks Masha why she's in the dungeon, especially since she's not even an adventurer. Masha, a little hesitant, admits her sales have been terrible lately, so she started working as a transporter. Loa blinks, confused, so Masha explains that transporters are the people who carry the loot adventurers pick up on quests, which makes almost no sense for someone like Loa who can cast item creation spells. Masha adds that she has a unique skill called excellent luck, and had been trying to use it by helping a party today, but she got separated from them halfway through the dungeon. Right then, the party Masha had been working with finally arrives. One of the men lashes out, yelling where she'd wandered off to and grumbling that if she keeps disappearing like that, they'll never be able to get their work done. Masha bows quickly and apologizes from the heart, but the man won't accept it. He says that since they didn't find anything valuable today, they won't pay her at all. And Masha looks a little downcast. She only nods, swallowing her pride as she quietly accepts their verdict and admits she lost track of them. It was her fault. The man sneers like he's doing her a huge favor, saying they won't fire her yet, but from now on every bit of pay depends entirely on how she performs. Loa watches everything in silence, a nagging feeling telling him something's off. If Masha had really been left behind, she would have caught up in a heartbeat. She's that fast, and someone like her would never ignore instructions to stay close to the group. Then something clicks in his mind, and he turns to Sonia and asks her to cover Masha's meal for the day. And Sonia agrees, slightly confused, asking why. Loa smirks and says something incredibly dumb just came up, then tells Sonia to go ahead and order some yam worm sauté for herself, which makes her shriek in protest right away. Meanwhile, the crew that hired Masha is busy mocking her. They deliberately abandoned her the moment they had the chance. One of them snickers, taunting that Masha must owe them now, and it's clear their intentions toward her are anything but good. Suddenly Loa steps in front of them, and they all freeze as they recognize him from before. He tells them, cold as ice, that he used a recording spell to capture every word they just said. If they don't want him to leak it to the guild or the public. They'd better pay Masha what she is owed. The men don't take him seriously. They laugh, mocking him and calling him a wannabe hero. One of them clamps a hand around Loa's neck from behind, as another whips out a sword and lunges at him. They laugh at him, taunting, "You're only level 31, no match for us." But Loa stays calm and activates his body strengthening. He easily slips out of the hold. In one smooth motion he springs up, plants his foot square on the face of the man behind him, and bolts away. He darts behind a wall as two of the men sprint after him, and the moment they turn the corner, Loa lands a crushing side punch, completely taking him out. The other man, startled, stumbles back as Loa steps forward and says he never meant to fight all three at once. That's why he picked them off one by one. The remaining man, annoyed, smirks and declares, "Loa finished," sneering that they're stuck in a narrow corridor where magic won't work well. But Loa flips his words back at him, calm and unshaken, saying it's just as hard to swing a sword in such a cramped space. The man charges with his sword, but Loa triggers his personal close combat move, Furno Stroganoff, and with a thunderous punch sends him flying. Loa looms over him and demands an apology. Bruce, barely able to move, weakly agrees, and as Loa turns to leave, he pauses. A girl stands before him, silent and wide-eyed as she takes in what he just did. She's the same mysterious girl who was with Arinko in the forest. Before Loa can even ask who she is, she steps right up and pins him against the wall. Then, with a firm voice and a confident smile, introduces herself as Merrill, a knight from the royal capital of Norum in the Kingdom of Drum. She has been watching him, and now she eagerly offers Loa a place in her elite squad. Loa stands there clueless, babbling that he won't buy expensive paintings and promising to beat up any bad guys she might bring out later, while Merrill tilts her head, clearly puzzled by his behavior, suddenly realizing she may have scared him and quickly trying to ease the tension. She chirps with excitement, urging him not to worry and to join her squadron so he can become stronger. But Loa stares at her blankly and replies that his late grandmother always said suspicious invitations never die down. They only grow stronger. Merrill blinks, a little thrown by the remark, apologizes for being abrupt, and finally says she met an old man named Arinko in the forest. Arinko told her about Loa and Sonia, and when she saw Loa, his looks matched Arinko's description so exactly that it made Loa see the connection. She brightens up again and asks him once more to become a knight, but before her excitement can even take root, Loa casually rejects her offer as if it barely crossed his mind. He says that even if she's short on knights, he still has his own dream. He wants to climb to the top with magic, so knighthood doesn't interest him. Merrill goes rigid with disbelief and points at his sword, asking why a mage like him would even carry one. Loa just replies that he needs it to cast certain spells. Everyone was furious at Merrill's size, calling it a waste of talent. He could be a top-class knight if he joined them. Loa began to walk away when Merrill suddenly grabbed him from behind and dared him to settle it with a spar. She lays down a condition. If Loa wins, she'll do whatever he sees. Later, back at the inn, Masha told Loa that the party who'd hired her had suddenly shown up and apologized. She holds up the small reward they'd given her and says their expressions were oddly weird. Loa smiles and tells her she did well, and Sonia walks over to gently thank Loa. She knows he must have done something behind the scenes. Loa sighs, confessing he can't hide a thing from her, and Sonia smiles sweetly. He suddenly grows serious and asks about the girl behind him. Loa turns his head and explains that Merrill suddenly showed up and invited them to become knights. Merrill steps forward and politely introduces herself to Sonia. She wants to borrow Loa, and Sonia is utterly shocked. Who does this girl think she is, just trying to take Loa away? Loa rushes through the explanation, and Sonia's stiff shoulders finally relax. He says Merrill wouldn't let it go, so they decided to settle everything with a spar. Merrill jumps in, grinning, and eagerly states the conditions. If she wins, Loa becomes a knight, and if Loa wins, she will do anything he says. Sonia's eyes narrow as she turns to Loa and asks what he plans to make Merrill do, and Loa pauses for a second before saying maybe he'll ask for money in case they go broke, or maybe he'll try to get some intel that only the knights have access to. Sonia, finally reassured, lets a smile return to her face. Her mood swings are really something to see. She lifts her chin and tells Merrill they'll spar because Loa will never lose, and Merrill answers with the same fierce confidence. She has no intention of losing either. Tension crackles as the two women lock eyes in a silent showdown. Loa, confused, leans toward Masha and asks why Sonia is getting fired up when he's the one who has to fight, and Masha replies, grave and steady, that this is now a battle between women. Before long, everyone is gathered at the Almont Guild training grounds, and in the center Loa and Merrill stand facing each other. While Masha and Sonia watch from outside the field, Sonia's eyes widen. She's surprised the guild has its own training ground, and Masha says that with so many professionals around, places like this are becoming the norm. They both glance at the injured party who once hired Masha, now standing at the edge, shouting cheers for Loa like excited fans. On the field, Merrill lifts a coin like a signal and tells Loa the match will begin the moment it hits the ground. Then she lays out the rules. Anything goes, just no blades. One clean hit and Loa wins. Merrill has to land 3 hits on him if she wants the victory. Loa's brow tightens at the 3-hit handicap. He doesn't want any favors. Merrill chuckles and throws the coin, saying she is just showing mercy to civilians as a proper knight should. She rushes forward, sword swinging with lightning speed. Loa is impressed. She is fast. He's fast. He narrows his eyes, trying to read her stance for a counter, but she blindsides him with a sudden feint. Before he can react, she lands a clean hit. Merrill cheerfully declares at one point, and she remarks that adventurers move so unpredictably she can't afford to let her guard down. She adds, a serious glint in her eye, that if Loa doesn't go all out, he'll surely lose. And feeling the pressure, Loa tightens his grip on the sword, ready to fight back. Merrill lands the first hit on Loa, and Masha and Sonia, standing off the field and watching closely, are stunned. Masha, voice trembling, tells Sonia the fight is turning out tougher than they expected. After all, Merrill did say she was a true knight, a title that sits at the knight's second highest rank. Sonia nods, a quiet admission of how strong Merrill is. It fits. After all, Merrill could spot Loa's hidden strength with a single glance. Masha then voices her worry. They whisper that Loa has never pointed a sword at another person before. That might make this all the harder for him. Meanwhile, on the field, Loa powers up his body-strengthening skill and charges forward, swinging his sword with precise force. Merrill deflects it effortlessly, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she can tell that Loa has started to take the battle seriously. She's stunned by how quickly he adapts to her moves, almost like he's learning in the middle of the fight. He's growing at an astonishing rate. Their swords keep ringing across the training grounds, loud and bright, but neither can land a hit. Merrill beams and says the fight's getting fun, while Loa, completely unamused, snaps that she's making a face no proper knight should ever make. Merrill laughs, then snaps back into her composed, focused self. Loa stares at her, a little overwhelmed, silently admitting that knights are terrifying, and he really doesn't want to become one. And in the short lull, he pulls a mono recovery potion from his item box and drinks it while Merrill, curious, asks if that too is made through magic. Merrill's playful tone drains away. A sharp warning look makes it clear she isn't going to give him another chance. Trying to recover, she grips her sword tightly and charges forward. Loa tries to fight back, casting a crackling lightning flash. But just when he thinks he's got the upper hand, Merrill blurs in behind him and lands a second blow. Loa cries out in pain. This blow hurts so much more than the first. Merrill offers a casual apology, admitting she can't help herself once a fight gets fun, then flashes a teasing smile and mocks him that a man shouldn't be crying over something like this. She throws another strike and Loa only just manages to block it. He's clearly struggling. Even with magic, the gap in their physical skills is huge. She closes in so fast that spells barely do anything. Merrill announces with fierce confidence that she's about to land the final hit, even offering to take care of all the paperwork and formalities for his knight registration once she wins, then lunges forward, swinging her sword. The moment hangs heavy. Loa's heart pounds like a drum. At this rate, he is going to lose. Even if he tries to dodge, his body won't move fast enough. No, that cannot happen. He clenches his jaw. He still has countless adventures waiting for him. He's not here to be a knight. He'll rise to the top by magic. That's his only path. And even if all he has is magic, it's more than enough. His focus snaps razor sharp, and suddenly a new notification blinks before him, announcing the activation of the magic creation effect. And in that instant, something inside him shifts. His aura turns completely different. Calm, sharp, composed. Merrill's sword is about to land its final blow when Loa, without hesitation, vanishes from his spot and appears behind her, his sword already mid-swing. With a smooth, flowing strike, he knocks the sword clean out of Merrill's hand. She gasps, stunned, as Loa lands his first hit. Silence holds for a heartbeat, then the wounded fighter from earlier erupts into cheers that roll across the whole battlefield, praising Loa for landing a strike on a second-class knight. Merrill, still in disbelief, gapes at Loa and asks what he just did, how he avoided her attack and reacted so fast. Even Loa doesn't fully understand it himself. He stares at his hand, numb with shock, quietly wondering where this sudden power came from. Somehow he'd managed to land a clean hit on someone leagues above him. Loa gapes at his sword, puzzled. It looks like plain wood, but something's wrong. A moment ago it flared when he struck Merrill without any magic, so still confused he shrugs it off and looks. Merrill smirked and happily declared he'd won. When he saw there was no other option, he suddenly burst into tears. Her sudden reaction makes Loa flinch. Through tears she tells him the Knight Order is painfully short-staffed. They're working so hard their skin is drying out and every new recruit quits almost immediately. And Loa, unsure what to say, awkwardly tries to comfort her. She insists she'll do anything Loa asks. A promise. Loa, sweating from the intensity of her words, says he needs nothing right now and will save that promise for later, still too. Merrill keeps pleading with him for any kind of command, even offering to sacrifice her paid vacation days for it. Poor Loa is overwhelmed, and he gently urges her to rest. Just then Sonia rushes up and throws herself into Loa's arm. "Terms!" she bursts out excitedly, asking how he managed to pull off such incredible moves, praising him as she stands way too close and making Loa flustered. He thanks her, but no. At last she blurts out that she's a little too close. Realizing it, Sonia flushes with embarrassment, hides her face and steps back quickly, while Masha moves closer and says that Loa was moving as if time itself had frozen, and that his sword looked enchanted. Her eyes shining, she asks him exactly what he did, and Loa, still unsure himself, says he doesn't know. He can't seem to do it again right now. But if he ever figures it out again, tackling dungeons would become so much more thrilling. And as they chat casually, Merrill listens silently. Finally, she calls to Loa, saying she gets why he won't join the Knights. He already has great teammates and really seems to be enjoying himself. She offers a quiet apology for pushing them to become knights, and this time she admits defeat. Merrill explains she belongs to the Drum Knight Order in the royal capital Norum, and if she's not at the dorm, she's usually out on patrol, rounding up thieves and dealing with criminals. She tells Loa, "If you ever need me, come find me." Loa nods, his voice soft as he thanks her for everything. They shake hands, and with that gentle grip, Merrill's short journey with Loa comes to an end. Back in the all-month dungeon, life settles back into its old rhythm, and Loa and Sonia dive right back into their dungeon runs. This time Masha was traveling alongside them. On the first floor, Loa asks Masha what brought her there. With an over-the-top samurai voice, Masha declares that Sonia has officially hired her as a courier, and Loa glares suspiciously, asking what's up with that strange accent. Sonia calmly says Masha probably wants to change how she speaks. Masha admits it. That weird-faced trio from earlier called her a pumpkin, and even though they apologized, the words still stung. And Loa bluntly says she shouldn't let things like that bother her. Sonia, on the other hand, gently says girls are sensitive about such things. Everyone wants to be called cute. Masha quickly denies she cares and says her reason is different, and she simply won't let the accent issue be put aside. Sasha beams and tells them to hunt as many materials as they want, saying she'll carry anything that won't fit in Loa's item box. But she reminds them she's saving up for her merchant dream, so she'll be charging them, while Loa approaches the freshly defeated monster and begins butchering. It happens when Masha stops him. She says the part he's cutting up won't sell for much, and Loa looks confused since he recently... A heat boar skin goes for about 6,000 mure, Masha explains. They flood the market in summer, so their price tumbles. The tusks are worth more. Most adventurers leave them behind because they're too bulky, but Loa can just tuck them into her item box and carry them off with ease. Impressed by her sharp eye, Loa leaves the lighter stuff for Masha and goes after the real valuables, tusks and claws. As they hack into the monster, another heat borer watches them from behind. But unfortunately, the heat borer is not able to see the heat borer. Too bad for him, Loa notices, and Boar's fate is sealed. 3 days later, the three of them. They're back at the Almont Guild, and Loa and Sonia glow with joy at the hefty pile of coins they earned selling the materials Masha had recommended. Masha beams at her earnings, eyes shining as she excitedly announces she'll buy a horse carriage with the money. Loa asks if she's quitting her job as a transporter, and Masha says she's thinking of heading to Norhem, the royal castle. Once she settles in, Masha promises she'll pay him back 100 times what she owes. Loa, hearing yet another new accent, can only hope she'll pick one and stick with it. And before leaving, Masha says goodbye and tells them to visit if they ever come to the capital, while Loa and Sonia wave her off with bright smiles. Once she's gone, Sonia smiles and says Masha is always so cheerful. Loa agrees, adding that hiring a transporter was a smart move, and thanks to Masha they learned the value of materials, and she got the funds to follow her dream. So Sonia quietly thinks to herself that she's a great person, and mumbles that if Masha hadn't been there, they might have had more time alone. It's a quiet, half-hidden confession, but Loa is utterly clueless about anything to do with love. Simply replies that it will be easier to fight with just the two of them. Later that night, Sonia is unable to sleep, tossing and turning, seething at how dense Loa is. She'd almost confessed her feelings, and he still didn't get it. And you can only imagine the rough awakening Loa must have had the next morning. Now on the 5th floor of the Almont dungeon, Loa and Sonia face a rank C monster called the Flame Buffalo that is chasing Sonia, and she skillfully lures it straight toward Loa.
He finishes it off with his skill surface water ball.
Goals reached. Sonia praises his timing and Loa humbly thanks her. The good news is that both have finally hit their target levels. Loa at 501 and Sonia at 516. Buzzing with excitement, Loa opens his status window and shows Sonia the new spell he's planning to get. Water Cloud Murasame. It costs 500 levels and has a mono cost of around 1,000, and he admits the Monaco comment is a bit high, but the damage it promises is powerful. He's grinning, ready to buy it, when Sonia suddenly appears behind him with a dark aura and calls his name in a stern voice, scolding him for even thinking of buying the spell inside the dungeon, and warning that dropping back to level 1 mid-dungeon without a proper recovery plan would be far too dangerous. Loa sulks, pleads that he really wants to get it, but Sonia stays firm. Watching the exchange, they honestly look like a married couple, the obedient husband being disciplined by his serious wife. Leaving the dungeon behind, the two return to the guild, and Loa's face lights up when she learns the 15 rank C magic stones they turned in earned them 90,000 mure. Considering they're stuck at a fairly pricey inn, he can't help wishing they'd earned just a bit more. and Sonia urges them to aim for the 6th floor next, hoping they'll find rarer, more valuable materials. Just as they're hashing out their plans, a man named Slay cuts them off, warning that heading to the 6th floor without being A rank is far too reckless. Loa shuts him down at once, bristling at his uninvited opinion and snapping that he should take his arrogance elsewhere. Slay insists he didn't mean it arrogantly, and offers to treat them to a meal if they'll share some useful information. Soon after, the three of them sit at the table staring at a spread of mouth-watering food, Loa and Sonia practically drooling as they ask if he's really paying for all of it and tease him about it. He tells them not to be shy and to help themselves. Loa picks up a steak, curiosity shining in his eyes as he asks what this undercooked meat is called, and Slay tells him it's called medium rare. As expected, Loa bursts into tears of joy after tasting it, the flavor hitting him so deeply that Slay turns to Sonia and asks what he normally eats, and after a hesitant pause she finally admits he eats caterpillars. Slay announces himself as an A-rank mage, and when Sonia says her name it sparks his curiosity. He asks if they've met before, and Sonia searches her memory but can't recall ever seeing him. Still, Slay kept insisting he'd for sure seen her somewhere. But they put that aside and went back to talking, Slay figuring they must be new adventurers in Alma. He tells them the 6th floor is a whole different level. The monsters are mostly B rank, and the recommended level is over 900. Sonia immediately asks Loa if that's higher than the extra boss they fought before, and Loa remembers that boss was also rated for level 1000, and thinks they might have a chance so long as they don't get swarmed. Slay looks stunned that they ran into an extra boss and asks what their current adventurer ranks are, and when he hears they're still C rank, his face twists into a strange look like he's holding back a million questions. Loa notices it and calls him out. Slay says it's even more dangerous for C-rank adventurers. So few have cleared the 6th floor that many of the monsters have never been defeated. Danger only fires Loa up. He asks Sly if he's a mage, and when Sly answers yes, Loa grins and says he's one too. Slay blinks in surprise. He hadn't noticed since Loa wasn't carrying a staff, and Loa admits he used to be a swordsman and only started using magic about a month ago, which makes Slay grin and tell him a stave can cut down the chanting time for spells, leaving Loa momentarily thrown. Slay explains that chanting pries open the mana circuits, and when mana is funneled into the stave, it makes the chant much shorter. Sonia glances at the staff beside him and asks if that's the one he uses. This line casually says he never has a chance anymore. Loa leans in, curiosity bright, and asks what that means. Slay just smirks and reveals he modified his own mana circuits, a trick few can pull off, then proudly says he did it because he's a genius, making it painfully clear he's a bit full of himself. Loa mutters under his breath. He'd thought Slay was a decent person, but now he just looks like a cocky show-off. Thinking about the fight with Merrill, a chill runs through him as he remembers that when he activated that strange power, it felt a bit like chantless magic. But the more he thinks, the more he realizes it was different. More like something subconscious taking control, and he stays lost in thought. Slay notices and asks, worried, if something's wrong. But Loa brushes it off with a smile, insists everything's fine, and adds he's happy to meet another mage like him. His lay smiles and nods, then his expression flips. There's a totally different light in his eyes, and he says that lower will make a great rise. Loa and Sonia step into a serene garden nestled inside the dungeon, a rare pocket of peace that makes them feel utterly safe and calm. The place is peaceful with no immediate threats, which puts Loa in a great mood. He gets excited and says it's the perfect spot to acquire his new skill, and Sonia nods, reassuring him it's safe enough to drop back to level 1, so trusting her, he activates his new spell, Water Cloud Morisum, which costs a massive amount of MP but unleashes devastating power. An incredible 30,000 damage, enough to take down even a B-rank monster. Loa grins with satisfaction, thrilled by the strength of the magic he now holds. But his joy is cut short when a level 2 cat suddenly bites his leg, and the tiny creature, to everyone's shock, knocks him flat. Sonia gasps in disbelief as Loa lies there, defeated by a harmless-looking feline. That night, Loa and Sonia sit at the table in their cozy room. Loa sulks, still frustrated that a low-level cat brought him down despite his overwhelming spell, and Sonia calmly tells him their priorities should be regaining his levels, suggesting they challenge the dungeon's 6th floor in 2 days. Loa nods, sips his drink, then walks over to the next floor. Staring out the window, Slay's warning about the 6th floor nags at him, and he tells himself he must hit at least level 500 before he even thinks of going there. Loa opens his status window to check his progress, then suddenly bolts upright with a shout. Sonia startles and asks what happened, and he quickly swings his screen to show her the flashing notification. A new feature has appeared. EXP gain is boosted, and the level reset bonus now applies not only to him but to his allies too. The news hits them like a bolt of lightning and they both scream out loud. A burst of excitement and stunned disbelief. The next day, they storm into the dungeon and face off against their familiar target, the second heat boar on the first floor. Normally, beating it would only lift his low level to 150, but thanks to the new bonus skill, he rockets straight to 250. Sonia stands stunned at the sudden leap in growth and says again how insanely overpowered the magic creation skill is. At this rate, she says, Loa could become the strongest mage in the world. And Loa laughs, clearly enjoying himself. He says his dream, mastering magic at the highest level, might actually come true. He falters, suddenly awkward as the weight of his words sinks in. Sonia sees him flush and smiles, promising she'll be by his side to help him reach that goal, and moved by her support, Loa offers a small, grateful thank you. Sonia lets out a shy giggle and welcomes his thanks with a soft smile. Their warm moment is cut short by another monster's sudden appearance, and without missing a beat, the two leap into action. They tear through the monsters that follow, and after battle, Loa's level shoots up to 610. He was completely astonished, unable to believe he had gone from level 1 to 610 in a single day, and at this pace he felt sure he could take the dungeon boss. But Sonia stayed cautious, warning that if too many monsters ganged up on them, it could still be dangerous. Eventually, they reach the 6th floor. As they walk, they talk about how vital it is to have a retreat plan in case trouble comes, and they agree to secure an escape route to the 5th floor before pushing any further. Just as they're going over their plan, a monster suddenly appears, looming just before a red ogre, its subjugation level a terrifying 930, bellows and swings its massive sword straight at them. Sonia leaps forward, her shield meeting the strike and stopping it. A steady presence that proves she's the team's rock. Loa activates Water Cloud Murasame, a shimmering sword of water and magic coalescing in his hand, and he rushes forward, acknowledging Sonia's effort to buy him time as he launches his attack. He flashes a cocky smirk and mocks the monster, saying it should take a few notes from Sonia's defense. The blade slices clean through the red. With a single flawless strike, the monster crumbles, and both Sonia and Loa are instantly rewarded with level-ups. Sonia beams as her level jumps from 700 to 750. Loa walks over with a proud grin and reminds her he said they'd level up fast. His level has hit 730. Standing side by side, they're stronger than ever and perfectly in sync. Their growth feels unreal, but they're taking it in stride, and right now, they look less like an adventuring duo and more like legends in the making. After felling the red ogre, Loa turns to Sonia, who's watching their back, and says they must retreat for now, only after grabbing the magic stones, because his new spell takes 152 seconds to recharge, so if more monsters show up in that window, he's practically useless. Even with all the noise they just made, it's still likely they'll draw more monsters, and he's unfortunately spot on. Sonia suddenly stiffens and, with a trembling hand, points behind him. A massive horde of monsters comes charging at them, and Lois's face crumples with pure panic. Some of them bolt toward the stairs in full retreat, convinced the monsters won't follow them across floors. But that assumption collapses as the monsters chase after them, pounding up the stairs with loud, thunderous steps. Sonia panics, gasping as she begs what they should do. If they keep going, they'll be pincered from both sides, chased by monsters from the 6th floor, and with monsters from the 5th possibly waiting above. Loa is just as lost, because even when his cooldown ends, he'll still need time to chant his spell, and they need a solution, fast. Then suddenly smoke fills the stairwell, wrapping around Loa's body. Sonia's mind snaps to the smoke trap they'd run into earlier, the kind that disarms people. She throws her hands over her eyes and peeks through 2 fingers, not wanting to accidentally glimpse Loa if he ends up disarmed, only for his cheerful voice to pop up right behind her, instead of screams or confusion. He strides out of the smoke, perfectly fine and grinning, and says his ring of detection warned him of the trap, so he could slip away. Sonia's jaw drops. She's clearly disappointed. Her sneaky little plan to catch a peek of Loa has completely failed, and her mood sours instantly. Before either of them can say another word, Slay crashes in like a storm, smirking as he casually mocks them for being as noisy as ever. With zero effort, he lifts a hand and, in a blink, the pursuing monsters are incinerated into nothing but ash. Loa and Sonia stood stunned as the horde that had them on the verge of death vanished in the blink of an eye. And me? Slay smiles, reminding them he did warn them. The 6th floor is no joke. Both of them express their thanks, and Loa, eyes bright with excitement, blurts out if that was a fire-type spell. He's full of admiration, realizing Slay just wiped out an entire group of monsters in one shot, using an element he should be at a disadvantage against. That's the kind of power an A-rank mage possesses. Slay soaks up the praise like fuel for his ego, and with a smug smirk he shrugs that elemental types don't matter against mere C-rank monsters. After all, he's a genius and Loa can't even argue. Because Slay may be arrogant, but his power backs it up. He does all this without chanting, and Loa is intrigued. In a rare moment of encouragement, Sonia even joins in, heaping praise and calling out Slay. She tells Loa he could do all this too if he just applied himself. And when a few leftover monsters creep out from a corner, seeing an opening, Slay decides to show off even more. He lifts off the ground, drawing Loa's and Sonia's eyes back to him. Loa gasps, stunned to see him flying. Sly just shrugs and says he's using gravity magic to hover. Then from that high view he scans the field and counts the enemies. And with a calm, steady voice he unleashes the spell. Meteor shower. Flaming boulders rain from the sky, smashing the last monsters to ash in a breathtaking display of magical power. Loa and Sonia watch in awe. The cratered battlefield, the smoke, the silence after the storm. It's all too overwhelming. Loa looks up with admiration and says that one day he wants to be just like that. Powerful, composed, and in complete control of his magic. Slay floats back down wearing a genuine smile, says he's excited to see how far Loa will go, then waves goodbye and drifts down the corridor, leaving the duo behind. Later, Slay walks the streets near the Adventurers Guild, having just exchanged his dungeon rewards for coin, muttering about how much fun it was to watch Loa and Sonia admire him, his voice carrying a tinge of obsession as he soaks up the attention, especially from those with real potential. Just then, a few thugs cut him off, smirking like he's an easy target. They demand his wallet, utterly clueless about the monster standing before them. Never hesitates. In a blur, he strikes every single one. Down, grinning like a maniac the whole time. He doesn't look worried at all. If anything, he's almost pleased, like this thrills him more than dungeon crawling, and his twisted smile widens as he watches the last one squirm. Unlike with monsters, Slay seems to get real satisfaction from bringing down humans.